KT, after having so many games, losing that neck-and-neck best-of-5 against T1, they still have the highest KDA in playoffs.
Yeah, I feel like it's been a pretty solid step up from the whole team, which has kind of led to that. I do also want to note the Herald percentage, Dragon percentage, a big focus on Dragons for KT, to trying to get that insurance for late game, whereas for Gen G, I feel like they often secure the Herald, put it down bot, get pays ahead, and that can often pay off quite well.
Yeah, I mean, that's why the cause we call him like the object controller, which is like the direct, like based on how they win the game. Is like just Dragon's tech. It's so easy, but the thing is like one thing, they're not taking Baron as much as the other team. So they like to not take a risk as much as they can, but the thing is like still they know how to stumble from the Drake.
They definitely do. This is the match record from this year. So far, 2 best-of-3s, both of them going maximum distance with a 2-1 for KT at both times. And we had to dig through the history books, gentlemen, to find ourselves some best-of-5s between these two organizations. It was back before Gen G existed, before KSV existed. It was the Samsung days, and it was pretty neck and neck there as well.
Yeah, even in terms of series, 2 for 2, so today could decide it and put one in the favor.
It certainly could, but those are with very different players. So now let's have a look at where these players all came from and at some of the best-of-5 history and experience between these two teams, because Peanut and Cuz really stand out to me. Like, they've been on teams not only starting off Cuz's career together, but also they've been on teams that have always been in those best-of-5s.
Yeah, there's a ton of crossover here. I mean, obviously, Lahens was just on Gen G, but a lot of players who have played on both rosters, and also, even if it's not on these teams, a lot of players who have played together over the history. So many storied names in this matchup.
Yeah, I mean, I really like how like the pace and deal. Like, it's not been like long time they've been playing, but still, they made it away from the playing for Gen G, and then they made it to the semi-final, which is crazy.
Yeah, and also, you can see it here, the Griffin line in 2019. Lahens, Doran, and Chovy were all here in the Jumpshill Indoor Stadium playing against T1, and they got bopped. It was that big old 3-0. I'm glad that we're back here, because finally, we might be able to see a series that goes more than 3 games. It would be fantastic, right?
That's the hope, and then obviously, hopefully, whoever wins today can go up and challenge T1. I think after the regular season, expectation was heavily in favor of them, but after KT's performance, they looked like they could be beaten.
Yeah, I mean, at least when I was in 2017 here, at least I make the game 4. That's what I did. So
it all comes back to Hootie, ladies and gentlemen.
Actually,
speaking of which, we now have a top lane key player matchup. Let's bring that one up onto your screen and check out how Doran is going to face off against Keen, because I think this is the most difficult matchup and the most obvious mismatch that we have in this series.
Yeah, I mean, Keen has been absolutely stellar. I feel like Zeus has been so hard to match, but if there's any player who has been doing it, it's been Keen, particularly in the series they had against each other. I feel like there's a gap between those two and the rest of the top laners, and Doran, it's going to be a struggle to just keep him out there.
Yeah, I mean, for King, like, from the regular season, like, he was good, but the thing is, like, I wasn't sure if King could be actually better than Zeus, but the thing is, like, he actually proved himself, like, at least in the lane phase, whatever he's shown the performance from the T1 series especially, I think it was crazy good, and I honestly don't know how, like, the Doran will be able to control the King performance, but for now, I think we have to see that from pick and ban first.
And we can see there, with the breadth of champions that Keen has at his disposal, red side, I think, is going to be something that KT are not going to be too scared about. And we've seen throughout the LCK and the playoffs, the blue side has been the preferred option. In Challenger, it's the opposite. And I think that with a top laner that has such a huge champion pool that can go for those counter picks, that is going to make things more dangerous. But let's talk about the juicy matchup. BDD versus Chovy is... oh man, this used to be... remember like BDD getting completely clotheslined by Chovy on that Yone? Gone are those days, gentlemen.
Yeah, I mean, both of them have been stellar. I would want to praise Chovy because something he's been criticized for in the past is being so focused in his own lane, not being able to move around the map much and set up the team. But the play he has displayed in playoffs on things like Lissandra, LeBlanc, the Ahri, moving around with Peanut, and just really setting the pace of the game has been absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing that I really mentioned. Like, another one, like he started to play like this kind of type of champion. That means like he can actually play like however he wants and then however team wants too. So he can be like really have a flexibility that whatever the team wants, like if the team needs to bring it to the Chovy, like if he needs a carry, he can play Yon, like anything. Like it's gonna be like really able to like depends on the pick and back.
No, I agree. I think we can have a look at some of the stats here between these two players as well. As I feel like, you know, we'll check out BDD first, and BDD it's a similar playstyle now between him and Chovy, which is kind of crazy because BDD was more about getting around the map, Twisted Fate, Talia, things like this that we've been remembering. He's still doing that, but he's also laning aggressively.
Yeah, I feel like something that really helped KT was when the meta started to shift away from the super bot lane focus to, without really interacting with mid, to the mids being big cryo movers. Because even when KT was struggling to start the split, he was trying to be very active, and now it feels like he's in a perfect spot for how the meta is. The TF is undefeated, it's been phenomenal. But even on picks like Veigar, he will apply lane pressure. He'll look to set up plays across the map. There was even the game where he went spellbook, popped the ghost, ran down for the skirmish to get there in time. Just really heads up playing.
Yeah, I mean, also you need to know, like, these TF, it's not like from the regular season. This is the playoff, especially against T1 series. Even T1 they didn't know how to even answer against BDD TF. That's how strong it was.
It's just nuts. Let's have a look at their stats. In the regular season, of course, Chovy, absolutely incredible. Outside of that, though, things do change a lot as we have a look at the playoffs.
I mean, I feel like the kill participation of 14 playoffs of BDD is just ridiculous. So bear in mind, in regular season, he was second with 44.8, 70.7. It's just ridiculous for a mid laner. Junglers don't always have that high kill participation, so just phenomenal work in getting around the map. To be fair, Chovy is also being pretty instrumental for his team in a similar manner.
Yeah, I mean, as you see, like, Chovy individual stats, like, it's on top of placement. And BDD, like, as you see, like, the KT, like, it's only, like, just no matter what, it's a key player. It's one of the, like, really, when KT is playing well, when they're actually winning, that's the where from the BDD start, from the movement from the map.
Yeah, and it's actually, to me, the thing that's crazy about those stats is it still says that Chovy focuses a lot on lane, but we promise you, everyone, he has started playing for his team a whole lot more. We assure you, the stats don't tell the whole story, and maybe previously they would have been a little bit further on. So I think that this is such a pivotal matchup between these two mid laners, and I'm really hoping that we get to see some of those shenanigans and some of the crazier picks that we saw in their best of 3.
I think it's going to be super important when it comes down to the draft. If you're in a situation where you have priority or you have a mid laner who can move better, you're going to be able to make that impact first. And as much as Chovy is still a phenomenal laner, he kind of shows he can do both, but I think it's going to be important to track BDD in this one and keep up with him.
Yeah, I think it will be really interesting. Like, I think Chovy knows how to punish like against like who moves the map a lot. Like that's why his stats are really good. So I think it's gonna be really interesting how the pick and ban goes, and then how the Chovy will be responding it.
I can't wait for the draft, and I also can't wait to find out what the team waiting in the finals is going to predict. Here it is. Owner is the only one that thinks that GENG are going to be able to win. He is the T1 chronicler, based on our predictions that we have. It's a bit of a spoiler. I apologize. But T1 definitely fearing KT, and an understandable outcome, I think, after their experiences against them in that 5-game series.
I mean, I think sometimes you say like a team nearly lost. They nearly lost, right? Sometimes like, oh, you know, it's kind of close, but game 5 was a bit of a stomp. It was down to the wire, and it's no surprise that they think KT are the bigger threat. And especially what I find hilarious is that T1 picked KT as their opponent in the earlier round. So clearly at that point, they're like, it's KT, we'll be fine. Not so much anymore.
Yeah, I mean, even the owner calculates is predicted GENG, but the thing is, like, still, it's really understandable. Anyone say it's like, even though you're KT, I think it's going to be like 3-2. That's how I feel.
Well, I think after that, we will be able to get into a little bit more. And let's hear from the coaches first and see what they had to say about this very pivotal best of 5.
네, 안녕하세요. 겐지 팀의 감독을 맡고 있는 스코어 고동빈입니다. 잠실에서 예전에 경기했던 뭐 기억도 나고 뭐 그런 기록이 새록새록 나는데 오늘 경기는 꼭 이기도록 하겠습니다. 승자전 이기고 나서 이제 진짜 중요한 게 누가 올라오든 꼭 이겨야 저희가 이제 결승전 다시 갈 수 있고 T1이랑 경기를 할 수 있기 때문에 졌을 때 경기를 좀 찾아보고 그거 위주로 많이 피드백했던 것 같습니다. 이제 뭐 돌아가면서 감기를 조금씩 걸렸는데 이제 뭐 지금은 아예 지장이 없을 정도로 많이 컨디션 회복돼서 오늘 좋은 경기 보여드릴 수 있을 것 같습니다. 되게 큰 무드에서 미드라이너가 되게 잘하는 게 엄청 중요하다고 생각하는데 다른 라인까지 영향을 잘 퍼뜨릴 수 있기 때문에 오늘 미드라이너 선수들의 퍼포먼스가 중요할 것 같습니다. 뭐 사실 승자 예측이란 게 되게 어떻게 보면은 맞는 그런 적도 많지만 아닌 적도 있었다고 생각하고 그거랑 상관없이 저희가 꼭 오늘 이기도록 노력하겠습니다. 이제 오늘 이기면은 또 LCK 3연속 결승 진출이 되는데 그 기록 계속 써나가고 싶고 오늘 꼭 이겨서 그 기록 제대로 써나가도록 하겠습니다. 젠지 화이팅!
안녕하세요. KT 롤스터 코치 최승민입니다. 예전에 우승했던 기억이 있는 곳이어서 오늘 잘할 수 있을 것 같습니다. 보여드렸다시피 저희 선수들이 라인전도 강하고 좀 팀 합이 잘 맞는다고 해야 되나? 상타력이 좋다고 생각합니다. 거기에 대해 큰 의의를 두지 않았고요. 저희는 오늘 경기에만 집중할 생각입니다. 중앙에서 미드 정글이 좀 주도권을 잡고 힘이 있어야 양 사이드로 펼치고 그 힘을 좀 게임 전체적으로 영향력을 펼칠 수 있다고 생각해서 BDD 커즈 선수가 주목해야 되지 않을까 싶습니다. 오늘 좋은 경기력으로 꼭 승리해서 결승에 진출할 수 있도록 하겠습니다. KT 롤스터 화이팅!
It seems like they may have been checking our notes, both Supreme and Score, looking at that mid lane and the jungle alongside it as being the most pivotal places on the map. Gentlemen, I think that we concur, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like earlier on it was very bot lane and like level 2 ganks from the jungle. It's now more about a little bit more involved in the mid about those skirmishes, and I think it's clear in this matchup in particular it's going to be huge.
Yeah, I mean, there was never been a season that not important mid and jungle honestly.
It's kind of true, right?
But the thing is that I think today outcall like from the top would be the key, the point.
It always is. It always is. We here on this desk believe that top lane is the most important lane on the Rift. But it's time to see what I thought was the most important moving into this, because I have something to admit. I may have said that GENG was going to come out second when I predicted the standings at the end of playoffs. I flip-flopped because KT just looked too good.
Yeah, you went over the VODs, you had a look, you analyzed.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, and
I realized that previously I was wrong. Ox, let's check in with you. I believe you might be in a similar boat.
I was right at the first time. I've agreed before, but I was right from the start. So yeah, I think KT have the edge on the day. I do think there are some picks I also want to talk about as well to watch out for. I think we talked a lot about like the Lissandra, but like the Ari and LeBlanc for Chovy is really big, especially paired with the Vi, and also the K'Sante, the fact it could be flexed. So I think these are the big ones for me for GENG. And then looking at the other side of KT, that TF, the Veigar have been phenomenal. I also like the fact that they have that CC to set up picks like the Viego, you know, that single target lockdown, and or in Veigar's case, the Burst, to get the reset, and also that Jax. Especially when Doran loves his Gnar, Jax may be a problem. So all things I think we should look out for and keep our eyes on.
Yeah, well, Huni, what do you have your eyes on?
I mean, honestly, like I'm the last guy at my predictions. it looked like maybe I might have followed you guys. Like
we followed Huni. He put it in the group chat.
But I present the that's what I was gonna say. I present my predictions at the group chat at the first guy, so everyone was following me.
Yeah, we admit that it is all Huni. He actually dictates how this all goes. I even changed my predictions based on what I see from him. But it is now time to get into the opening and then move towards this pivotal best-of-5 series. Soon we're going to send someone to MSA. I cannot wait. Let's get to the opening and then to the cast.
That's closer than we think. If KT manage to win 3-1, I would think they have a good shot against T1. It's that boy! Drop the beat. Show me them boys.
젠지도 여러 번의 가능성이 있었습니다. 약간 정도 이제 안 되네요. T1이 이 정도로 강하니까.
결국엔 매우 훌륭한 경기력과 타이트한 모습을 보여주고 있고
아,
젠지가 안 나빴거든요. 분명 올라갑니다. 첼로 올라갑니다. 첼로 젠지 나와. KT가 진짜 성장한 것 같아요. 그냥 KT 강합니다.
Do they have like outside TVs for people who want to watch? Yeah, for those people who can't get tickets to the inside stadium.
Greetings and welcome to the LCK lower bracket finals of spring 2023. I am Valdez, joined by Wolf and Chronicler here for the lower bracket finals. This is going to be a fun one. We get to see who will get a chance at fighting off against T1 tomorrow in the grand finals.
It's a historic day here at the LCK because today is going to be the first time we are going to have this back-to-back format where we have not just our finals in a live venue with a massive audience, but today we have it here for the match before. The lower bracket finals, there are people pouring in still as we speak, filling in their seats. There's such a long line outside. And tonight the story is going to be, can KT do it? If GENG are able to take the win, they'll get the third finals in a row. But for KT, it has been so many years.
And that, I think, sets for an incredibly exciting stage. As Atlas already spoiled, we have some conflicting opinions as to who's actually going to make it. But when you look at the spread, I think this is a very even matchup where any outcome really can happen.
Yeah, definitely a lot of, it feels like KT leaning online, even on Twitter I was seeing, and we even saw, before we even reveal it, the LCK poll was going out there, seemed to be leaning towards KT.
Wrong,
so, I mean, but you never know, because a lot of these guys on the side of KT, they definitely have a lot of experience, but some of them, like Aiming, still reaching for their first finals. Whereas on the other side for GENG, you've got guys like Pace and Delight, who they've never really been on this big of a stage. They haven't. So a lot of pressure on them to really step up to the plate here when the pressure is on.
It certainly is going to be a test of endurance, I think, because when we take a look at the predictions, you guys will see here they come up. No one is expecting tonight to be a one-sided series. In fact, only one person, actually someone changed their pred, so two people predicting a 3-1, but no one has gone the 3-0.
And you can't reasonably expect that because, as we see, when it comes to the global team, leaning very much towards KT, I'm the only GENG. But on the other side, it's kind of the flip, although you guys have the pony prediction, which worries me a little bit.
Very safe.
He's been very, very on point, but what really is the takeaway, as you say, Wolf, is that we are expecting this to be a close series here, with neither team having a clear-cut advantage. No free zeros at all. You don't see that often.
Yeah. And you can hear the roar of the KT fans who've been waiting for this for so long. I mentioned it when we had that KT series against T1 where they almost won the winners finals, about how long these fans have waited for a huge moment like this. And even when we had our opening video playing moments ago, when the KT players showed up, the crowd went wild. And I think a lot more KT fans showing up to root for this team, as you can see in the fan prediction here, than otherwise you would have expected, because this team has not been at the top of the LCK for so many years.
Yeah, I mean, you even saw in the points of the match, the last time they were champions were many, many years ago, over 5 years ago. So it's been a long time coming for this organization, one that has been huge in Korea for a very long time, but could definitely say the same about GENG, especially in recent times, as, you go back 5 years, they weren't necessarily hitting those championship spots or even the playoff spots. But nowadays, especially the fact that they even just won the last final over in Gangneung in summer for 2022, this team looking to get back into finals. And we'll have to see if they can continue with their recent year-by-year form.
And it's two completely different stories for KT. It is getting back to the top. This team, ever since 2018, was really kind of in free fall. They made playoffs a bunch of times, but were never a real contender for GENG trying to reclaim their throne.
Well, guys, we will have the players walking out onto the stage. As here they come one by one. It's Doran. Once again, all LCK third team definitely going to have a big responsibility tonight.
Oh, definitely. And I think this is one of the matchups which, as Keen walks out here, we're going to really have to be zooming in on, because Doran seemed unshakable, unbreakable in so many of these important series, maybe even on, mostly weak side for GENG, but Keen's champion pool is larger and his current form is much stronger.
As the desk was saying, this is the only player who can match Zeus in of itself. No mean feats. No one else in the LCK is able to do it. As Peanut, he's been in a bunch of these finals. He's not too impressed. Always level-headed as he walks onto the stage. And even though he's had some rough moments, in large parts of the season was a pivotal point of what made GENG strong.
Yeah. And I think for Cuz here, interestingly, he hasn't had a big rise to form in a long time like KT Rolster. It's fitting that this is the jungle player who is actually now making a huge impact for them in the early game. The early roams we're seeing from BDD, and his return to form comes at the best time for KT Rolster.
But guys, we gotta look at the mid lane. This has been highlighted as the most important part of this series, and it may just be. Both of these mid laners on a huge high-level form right now. Chovy has been insane nowadays.
And we talked about Keen coming back to form, but no rise bigger than that of BDD. Going to looking like one of the worst mid laners. Last split really was dealing with the impacts of COVID, was struggling together with the rest of Nongshim, and now looking like one of the best mids in the LCK yet again.
And now it's time for the man who may be a royal roader if he's able to win this best of 5 tonight and beat T1 tomorrow. 2 back-to-back best of 5s for the rookie AD carry, who's already achieved so much in his first split of the LCK. He may just do it.
He may just do it, aiming also himself, aiming for his first finals in the LCK. He has been around for a very long time, and yet he has not made a finals. He is still looking to achieve that goal, but he needs to get through GENG tonight.
And Delight, a player that many on Brion already rated very highly. When he was there, his recon play, often a pivotal part of what made that team fun to watch, has been doing expertly, although struggling a little bit in the playoffs, and he needs to step it up today because his counterpart is on fire.
Yeah, Lehen's defending champion here, but now changing sides. He will fight his former team in a best of 5 here to try to go to another finals. He was in that 2019 finals on Griffin, where they were 3-0 by SK Telecom T1. Has a chance for revenge here on this very stage, but he and his squad will have to win this best of 5 in front of this massive audience, and then prepare for what will be an extremely grueling series tomorrow. It's the upper bracket advantage that T1 holds as they get to watch this series from home and prepare very easily, very comfortably.
As Peanut and Lehens go head-to-head, I don't know what they're gonna do here. Maybe just stare at each other. Oh, there it is, the fist bump.
And that's it. We're going off to Picks and Bans, man. It is really happening. I cannot believe. I waited so many years for us to have, semifinals in the venue. This is not semifinals to change the format, but to have an extension of what is a great celebration of League of Legends for a massive audience like this happen outside of the finals. And we're lucky enough to experience it here.
First time we do get a lower bracket in the LCK means that we get more of this. More finals venues, more huge crowds, and more hype for everybody who is watching.
One day we could have this for regular season, you know? If esports keeps growing, this could be what your regular Brion versus Kwangdong game looks like. And tonight, it's such an important series for KT. I think they are the focal point because GENG has accomplished so much as a team. Even if you look back at Samsung, Samsung Blue, Samsung White, this team has always been at the forefront. KT, more famous in the early parts of League of Legends, picked up that title 5 years ago, but nobody remembers the team that goes out in third place. They remember the team who loses the finals, and taking this big step, even if they lose to T1, would mean so much for the org and the fans.
And as you mentioned, the true benefit, I think, of the new format that we have is that we get to see KT again. Imagine what a disservice it would have been if this team, after the performance they had against T1, would have just been gone. But now, as mentioned, very, very even matchup here today. They have a chance to make it back. And I do agree with you, Wolf. It really does feel like, for GENG, if they make it, it's business as usual. It's the third final in a row. They're just back there again, right? They were there last spring. They were there last summer. But for KT, opportunity to finally get a shot at reclaiming an LCK title.
It's a pretty interesting position too, because as you mentioned, it could just be business as usual for GENG, the organization, but for Pacing Delight coming in basically new to this grand stage, and also the fact that, as you guys can see in the predictions and in the fan vote, KT seemed to be the favorite coming into this. So it's actually GENG that have less pressure, funnily enough. If you do look at the predictions that do side with KT, which has been a little bit of an issue for the organization in the past. And I'm not saying that's going to become a thing in this series, but we'll have to wait and see who's going to play better as we are hopping into our first draft.
Now, GENG, of course, has side selection, have chosen blue side here, and I think that this is going to be a big test for them for their first blue side draft. Malphite taken away already. And it's Score also facing off against his former team here on the stage. Last time KT won a finals, it was him with the squad winning that first title. So many storylines here in this best of 5.
And already big here, the Zeri ban. That's what I was going to be looking towards, because neither of these two bot laners should be allowed to have either Zeri or Varus. They both performed very, very well on it. And with those already out of the picture, looking like neither Pace nor Aiming is going to get what is currently considered the strongest, is that the Sante ban. Respect towards Doran for sure, but also the flex potential for GENG as we get a Jace first pick, which also makes the Malphite ban even more obvious than it was.
Exactly, and it's also just basically putting GENG, and I think we'll see a lot of this in the series, picking for Doran, having strong side early. Now this is still flexible, but you know that when you have a Jace locking in this early in a draft, you're usually not going to be in a counter matchup against Keen, who is arguably the second best top laner right now, playing close to Zeus. When he was given the Jace pick, you just removed that option right away, and you're saying, this is my top lane, I'm dictating the pace.
And expecting a Wukong possibly to come out here. The combination specifically of Rakan and Wukong has been very good. The Vi will be interesting because I think Cuz's team fighting on Wukong has been impeccable, and there is no Zeri, but still going to ensure that the single target lockdown is there. GENG can respond here with Aphelios and Thresh, but the Kench coming out early here and into Vi and Rakan. Very high value pick.
Yeah, I think showing the Rakan early here and the Vi means this is a really easy lane to pick up now for GENG. And obviously KT, they're going to lock in the Xayah here, but it doesn't feel like a strong pick in this rotation because you've already been answered here in lane. So you have a safe lane bottom against this Vi. You do have top prio. Now what you give up as GENG here is the jungle priority. So you'll lose the Wukong pick here in this second banning phase. We'll see what KT can do to try to warp this draft. We saw that Elise hovered as well. I think a very strong pick here potentially for Peanut. We'll see if one of those two picks does go through, as Chovy has been left otherwise untouched in this draft, and the Jace could still be a flex. As such, you see the AP jungle removed. The Maokai first, not the Elise, taken by
Still counts. Peanut has played a lot of that Maokai in the jungle, so I do understand that. As actually they're going to target more champions for the top lane here and try to get Doran in even better lane.
I'm imagining that maybe we also see a ban come through to the Gragas. That has been a pick that has been very successful into Jace, AP variety most notably, but it's going to be the Veigar instead, and that is a great choice. I think BDD definitely deserves that respect. Expecting now KT to pick up a top lane matchup here for Keen, and then save that crucial counter pick for BDD.
Yeah, and now you lose a lot of power in some of these picks like the Ahri and the LeBlanc, because they can pick Lissandra into it in a draft that does definitely suits it.
Yeah.
So you lock in the Ahri here, but unfortunately now GENG can play the Lissandra Viego. This is the way.
Oh boy.
GENG with a big draft gap here already in game 1, and I don't know if a top counter pick is going to salvage this for KT Rolster.
Well, they do have the Ahri Vi, so perhaps they can get some kind of 2v2 going with that. But as you mentioned, this has been the stock standard counter in the 2v2. The Viego, Lissandra, and GENG get their hands on it for free. So what's going to be the final pick for Keen? They have saved R5 for him, and it's Sion in the top side against Jace.
So it does provide a reliable front line here, but we do have both teams kind of playing with a very aggressive dive style in the mid-jungle, right? Viego and Lissandra versus Vi and Ahri, but both also struggle. The Kench takes away a lot of the power of the single target removal that KT has, but Xayah, in general, does have a lot of innate safety, and I think in that case, it's the Jace, to me, that is the big difference maker, because if you are a team that's just hanging back and firing off Shock Blast, if Doran can get through this lane unscathed, doesn't get ganked too much by Cuz, doesn't get collapsed by BDD, I think GENG have a great shot here.
I absolutely agree. KT Rolster have been operating so much around Cryo. Now, if you take this Ahri out and put the Veigar in that was banned, I like this draft suddenly a lot more for KT because it's more comfort. Feels like you're going to have a lot more Cryo in mid and you can push around that, play around that. Your Vi is a lot stronger. But now that you're playing into the Lissandra because you opted to ban away jungle picks and they get the Viego Lissandra, you didn't gain anything from those jungle bans, and now GENG have such a comfortable bot lane. They've got a comfortable mid. Topside they have control, and KT and Cuz in particular haven't looked as strong when they don't have set up Cryo in lanes. Really leaning towards GENG here in this first game.
Going to be very exciting. We need to see Cuz and BDD get things done early. If they don't snowball that mid-jungle 2v2, I think the mid-game skirmish is going to be extremely hard.
Well, there's a lot of pressure on all of these players here. Very curious as well how some of our newer players to this big stage will react to all of these fans as we are ready to jump into game number 1 of the lower bracket finals. Let's do it.
Is that Puma? Go.
Well, there you have it, guys. We have a lot of people here, and you may say to yourselves, oh, it sounds like there's more KT fans. We're actually on the KT side of the stadium. The Korean casters, of course, are on the other side, on the GENG side, so be that what it may, but still definitely a lot of fans out here cheering for both teams.
Goosebumps as we hear the cheers. Couple of quick notes on the runes. Keen going for the Comet here, so really trying to get the most in the short trades that he can get against the Jace. And Lahen's actually going for the heal here, with aiming being forced to go for cleanse into Lissandra and the Viego. Lahen's still having a laning focused rune with that heal, so could see that be a pivotal difference maker as Pace going for the Ghost, trying to get the most out of the team fights. Also starting with a call here. And this is one of the champions, and we didn't really get the chance to discuss, that Pace is extremely comfortable. And I think that particularly with the Zeri gone, him getting a Phelios in his first game of this caliber can be a big difference maker, because we have seen at times, first game against T1 of the season, it's a while back, but we could very clearly see that nerves can definitely get to him.
Yeah, and when the Zeri is removed right away, it's really easy to say, well, I have a prepared lane set up here for this Xayah Rakan, which you expect is coming, and then you have the early Jace, so you have top bio, and now you have the saved counter pick here for Lissandra if they go for the LeBlanc, which is less common for BDD, or the Ahri, and we see the Cannon ban, right, which is obviously quite pivotal here. We have a level 1 trade, and you also saw the Veigar ban, so they really prepared very well for this first blue side draft. I think a lot of the pressure in this first game is going to be on aiming to actually pop off and carry in these late game team fights with the Xayah. There's a great frontline for him, and he's going to have a lot of agency too, because Ahri will also be a pseudo frontline with the Vi, so a lot of collapse onto this very immobile Aphelios, and you only get one Devour. So if they can maybe get Devour before a team fight, and then he has all of that agency, he absolutely can carry these. But the question is, will he? You know, he's going to have to perform big.
Yeah, there's a lot of focus on this bottom lane, but as we have been saying, still a lot of focus on the mid lane just because it feels like so much of this game just runs through the mid laners of both of these teams. It's kind of, you know, you were talking about KT playing a lot through Prio, BDD getting a lot of that even with picks like Veigar, which doesn't always make sense. But Chovy, who's also Chovy and oftentimes wins lanes and does do very well on the map from there. So very curious to just watch and see, you know, how Peanut and Cuz are going to play around these mid laners because they need to win these 2 games.
Do note both junglers pathing to opposite sides of the map, so Doran definitely needs to be a little bit careful. If King can hold the wave here and deny him the crash, then maybe there's an opportunity for Cuz, but based on Cuz backing, I'm pretty sure that they don't want to risk it. Also, do note, as you were saying, the mid lane matchup being so important is very funny because it matters in different ways. For GENG, mid is just a way to enable bot lane. They play, just like last year, very heavily towards the bot side of the map, leaving Doran on an island and trying to get Pays ahead. And for KT, it's kind of the opposite. If you have mid prio, then that frees up Lahens, and you can try and get Keen or BDD ahead, let Cuz counter jungle, and snowball from there.
Yeah, there's such a clear link between BDD, Cuz, and Lahens, and the 3 of them operate so well together when they have that mid prio, but in moments like this where they do not, you know, the agency is gone, and without enough vision here, Cuz is able to threaten the Jace top side, so he just gets a free lane. As he's coming mid now, oh, there's a claw, it's Lissandra, Charm's gonna go wide, and what are you gonna do?
Oh, goes back in. It's actually a very nice trade here for Cuz. Doesn't have to use a lot to get the stun. They did see him on the ward. As what's going on in top lane? This is already going in favor of Keen. Now Doran's going to be okay.
We have seen...
But that's a very nice trade here for Keen on the Scion.
Yeah, and Valdez, we have seen really one player win this matchup in the LCK, and it's Kana, who's actually done extremely well on Scion into the Jace in particular with the Comet build. And you like to see it here. It's going to give you a lot of faith that even in a matchup like this, Keen is going to have a lot of agency. And look at the health advantage now.
Really nicely done by Keen. It's a reason why when the desk was talking about as well, they say, and I agree, the biggest mismatch in this series. Doran in the past has been able to kind of step up, but this playoffs hasn't looked like his usual form. When Doran is on the top, he can play lanes out very safely. This time around, Keen's saying absolutely not.
Yeah, and he's got the wave pushing into him, so he is just in a super comfortable spot. He's going to back now. He can match teleports if he needs to, and he's going to be great. Now, Doran, of course, he's still playing into a tank. He's still playing into Scion. He can go back, get his health back. He picks up a tier and a call and a refillable. So he's like, I'm not leaving lane. I'm going to sit here and farm. And I don't care if you're taking good early trades. I'm still going to be Jace, and I'm going to scale into the mid game.
And something that's very important here as well is what Genji was able to do early to Cuz, because both Chovy and the bot lane used their prio to generate early vision, which means that Cuz actually wasn't able to get anything going early besides that one play he made on Chovy, but Chovy was also aware as he was spotted beforehand. And Cuz has been so good at taking small leads with jungle farm, then getting an early level 6 and making plays on the map. So at least in that regard, they're fine. Doran!
Oh my god.
What's the flash?
What?
Yeah.
That's not it. That's not what we want to see early on here for Doran.
Yeah, also just moments before, walking back into the smash as well as he hit level 6, and almost looked like he was baiting at first, but there's no jungle topside there. Keen doesn't take the bait, then he's going to follow up here and force a flash. That's a flashless Jace.
All right, it does look like Genji should be able to comfortably take down this objective, although BDD is getting a pretty good trade onto Chovy, and it is still a 4v4. Top laners, no teleports in this one, and Genji actually going to respect it. They do back off of the Drake for now, as they are trying to keep it least here and maybe just zone away BDD and go from there.
And trying to threaten. They have to respect this.
Okay, Delight goes back in as Cuz is on the Drake. Still could be smited, but at least is entirely back into the pit. As both teams big time posturing around this first Chemtech Drake.
Still going.
It's not over yet. Just kind of holding the lines for now. Not really crossing it as either team.
Yeah, show me that Drake damage in team fight graph. And actually, KT are going to get this.
Yeah.
I think Delight's decision to go in there to try to scout out the Ahri and push her back actually really lost a lot of control there for Genji when he ended up going for the dive there. It was avoided, of course, and they lost a lot of prio.
And Keen there, as you point out, Vel, is being the difference maker because he was spotted, but if he ults in, and you lose an early skirmish against Ari and Vi, you're in really deep trouble. Crucial there is that a lot of the engaged ultimates are just not available, right? Lehens was still level 4. We saw that Cuz doesn't have his ultimate yet, so both teams are like, I kind of want to go in, but it's going to be very telegraphed, and I don't really have the opportunity, so very nicely done by KT.
Oh boy, here we go. Already in the top lane, Keen is getting it started as he's taking an extended trade here against Soren. Going to be knocked back.
Oh!
Baboon! Smash down for first blood, Sion versus a Jace.
No flash from the earlier play, and he knows he's got ult there. And he's Sion, he can keep pushing the advantage. Beautifully played from Keen and Doran. Already in game 1 under the pressure.
All right, trying to make a play down on Bob's side. That stun will land on aiming. Is just going to use his cleanse as now Aru comes down. Level 6 on Peanut, who does have Heartbreaker. And Cuz is coming in, but aiming is totally zoned away. Cuz certainly going to go for this one as, okay, flash out. Cuz not able to get in with the ultimate. Now he's got BDD, who gets first roam to the bottom side. And that is going to be KT using their prio. Beautifully they get down and they pick up another kill.
BDD, this is what he does. We talked about the link between Lehens, BDD, and Cuz, but you give him prio in mid, he'll just drop waves too. If he's got enough control bottom side to make a play like this, Chovy just stays. And, you know, he's 20 CS up, but a proactive play like this comes up big.
And as good as that bot lane play is, that at least is a set play done and very well executed. This is a straight up 1v1. Right, like Keen is able to, with zero jungle intervention, just through his own laning and the mistake from Doran, pick up a kill, and that's going to mean that the sign is going to be almost unkillable. Delight unable to hit the W, which means that this play doesn't actually have the damage that they need, and then crucially, the root there means that Peanut takes so much damage, and we do see Chovy initially is following, but when Cuz shows up, he's like, this play, not working out, right? It's not happening, which is true, and Pace never getting out here, even if he does flash, will just get ulted by Vi and Ari. And KT playing so well here to the early power of that mid-jungle duo.
You can see Chovy was winning rapidly as well when BDD was rotating down. He wanted to let his lane know, but they see Cuz and like, man, he's got 6, there's no way. I think it's actually a good call from Paze, as you mentioned, to not flash there. Even though he's a young player, doesn't panic, stays cool, will give the kill over. It goes to Vi, critically, will not be going over to the Xayah, which means this matchup can still remain stable. He's got a call coming up in 23 minutes.
Now, JTC, I mean, we're still strong. We still have Lissandra, Diego. We still should be able to fight, right? Well, let's see. I mean, BDD doesn't have his ultimate here, so that might be part of it. And yeah, they're just going to give it up as... At the same time, Lehens is hanging out in the shadows.
On Paze respects him, even with no vision here, because they don't see him rotating up. He should have shown in mid by now, but this means aiming is getting free plate gold.
And his support isn't here, so you don't have a Tom Kench. I mean, what are you going to do? You just...
He's
just going to flash the wall, and Paze, he shows for 1 second, has to respond flashes. Meanwhile, in mid, we do have the Viego and the Lissandra together. BDD will tick down, and Toby picks up a kill.
And what's remarkable, this is the opposite of how Genji usually plays. The light roaming up towards the Heralds, even though it does secure them, it means that the leads that was there for Pace now mostly gone. Aiming is going to go back and be able to pick up an early kill force. And fortunately for Genji, they're able to get this play in mid, because Chovy, if they didn't find any way to accelerate anywhere on the map, they were going to be in deep trouble. And the cancel.
Okay, Chovy just going to get out of here as Pace, meanwhile, with Crescendum down in the bottom lane, definitely going to pick up at least one plate. He's getting in there for more.
Keen's coming down to look for a play here potentially as well.
2 plates.
No flash.
Delight going to split that one. As meanwhile, Cuz just hanging out here trying to steal this. Might get caught out as, once again, Lissandra Viego going to force a flash out of Cuz this time.
Keen does have teleports. This is a no-cost play here, even if they don't get a kill. So he can just teleport straight back to the top lane and see if he actually commits.
Devour is there. Don't know if they can go for this.
Yeah, he's just going to back.
Or is he? Well, gonna stick around for a little bit.
Doran's obviously calling this out, and it's like we're just going to see it back here from Pace, but the way that KT is playing this early game so far has been phenomenal. Now, this is at the cost of Lissandra getting a massive lead here. He did get the kill, of course, and has a 30 CS advantage, but Now, will it ultimately matter that much? I mean, the Lissandra having a 1,000 gold lead is less significant than a Xayah getting fed early, and a Sion having a massive advantage over a Jace that won't be accelerated here in this mid game. This is what happens to BDD while all of that is happening. Bottom side here, Peanut reads the play and comes over here, hides in the Shroud.
Yeah.
Sets up the stun.
I think BDD's got to respect that just a little bit more. I mean, he is Ahri, so he figures, okay, I mean, even if he's here, I can probably get away, but yeah, just on the edge. Nice little play there from Peanut, very unexpected. As our first couple of Drakes guys are Chemtech and Ocean, and KT's going to get both of them. So we do see a bunch of plates going over. It's Hex Soul for game number 1.
Honestly,
brimming over from Challenger finals we had yesterday.
As long as it's not cloudier, it's amazing, right? Mountain would have been great for both of these teams, especially for KT.
BDD in a lot of trouble. Will land the charm and has cleanse, actually, with his unsealed spellbook, so he will handle the pressure once again. You can see Peanut and Chovy trying to put 2 or 1 and 1 together, I guess, to make this follow-up happen onto BDD.
And yeah, right now, Pace did just finish his call, was actually on his previous back, had 3 gold left, felt very, very bad. I feel like we've seen him go back with like one minion left a bunch of times. And that play, BDD not dying there is really, really big because it means that I think if he does go down, then GENG actually gets to put a lot more damage into this mid lane turret. And they're very clearly playing towards Chovy. And I do think it makes sense. We're going to see Keen, particularly with the lead he has, itemized very heavily into go in as much armor as he can. Because late game, it doesn't matter if Lissandra's fed. Like, good luck getting through a Sion once the health really starts stacking. She just isn't that type of mage. And because of that, very important for GENG to try and take full map control before that actually comes to fruition. Because if Chovy's fed and he can get Payzad, once Pace is LDR, he gets to actually chew through this health bar of the Sion.
His lead needs to be utilized here in these upcoming fights. This third Drake fight, absolutely, I think GENG should fight for. His aiming is hiding here in this brush.
He's still hiding.
They want to set something up here.
He's dropping a whole wave. Okay.
If Pace respects, they're not going to get anything.
I mean, Pace just kind of waddled his way in very slowly, so...
Seems like a rookie punish attempt, and Pace is just going to be rock solid, man. He's not going to make a mistake here.
Yeah, pretty interesting, but doesn't really amount to too much as nice little root comes in. This is Ira Collins, so Lahen's just going to hop away. And both junglers hanging around the bottom side of the map, even Peanut just trying to help a little bit, just with a little bit of presence there, and deny them from getting too frisky down on that bottom turret and potentially picking up first turret blood.
I really like how BDD, just in case we haven't engaged here, I'll hold it, but I like how BDD instantly after using his flash went to the cleanse, so he has the cleanse available in that mid exchange. That's part of why he gets away, the power of Unsealed Spellbook. And KT are just really hard trying to put the pressure onto Paze in this game, but he's handled it so incredibly well. You can see this is the total damage dealt. The Sion is doing big things in the top lane to a Jace.
Yeah, Sion generally, I mean, we even know from the days of Khan, right, where he would always get like top damage. Sion can do some wonderful things, especially if you pick up an early Sunfire cape. Shout out to Ox, our desker for today. Big fan of that item, and yeah, I mean, he's got plated steel caps, he's got cloth armor, so against Jace and Viego, I mean, maybe eventually they can kill him, but I'm not even sure about that. As now, the turnaround comes in, and I kind of foreshadowed this. Peanut in a lot of trouble. He's got to get over the wall, but now he's got an Ahri on his back. As the Everfrost doesn't need to root. The slow is enough, and they get the kill. BDD will pick up another one.
And this is the type of map play that we have seen so many times from KT, and trying when you're Jace with Core Drinker and Viego with the Divine Thunder to kill a Sion in time.
I was just talking about it.
Not happening.
He's unkillable.
Yeah, Chovy, don't bother.
Now, Chovy's teleport just came back up, so he can't match the play. They know his teleport is down. They've tracked this, and they make a proactive play here. Keen baits it. BDD comes over, and it's this composition from KT into the Lissandra counter, quote-unquote, where KT is winning skirmishes. KT is making plays into the cryo lane of the Jace.
OTP.
Okay, trying to punish here. It is just Cuz, who might have to give his life alone. He's trying to get into the gate, I guess. But now just going to continue running as he knows Chovy has TP'd behind him. Now, he is not dead yet, as everybody is still on the chase, and Cuz, okay, he's going to get flash licked. Will it matter? Pace. And now he's got aiming for some feathers, and they just chase him around the map, and Cuz just laughs his way to the bank.
Keen's going to get a turret for this. Bottom lane, he's going to get the whole turret.
and nobody's here to punish him. They chased a Vi all the way around the map. I mean, KT right now are running circles around GENG. Sure, you've got a gold lead, GENG, but KT not far behind. This turret's going to make it even. And if you cannot win this Drake fight as GENG, things get real complicated here. I think you really need to try to force this one. Chovy's holding exhaust. This is a fight you need to win, and Pays doesn't have his ghost. This is going to be a tough one. If you give KT sole point here, they can choose to dictate the rest of this game on their terms.
On the flip side, though, if GENG, with the spikes that they've hit, Gale Force for Pace, Chovy sitting on a stopwatch as well, can get this Dragon, the same can be said for KT. Hextech Drake is so incredibly strong, but GENG need to get backline access. They need to get Peanut and Chovy going early on. They need to get a single pick. That's what starts off this composition. Otherwise, they're going to be in deep trouble.
Yeah. Feels like both sides have a lot of pick potential in this one. Whereas GENG a little bit more of a frontline tank in that Scion alongside of the pick.
BD doesn't have access to this team fight right now. He's on the wrong side of it, so it's going to take a long wraparound with Lehens to try to get set up here. So GENG, definitely the stronger setup right now by far. KT may just have to give this up.
Oh,
and they're kind of wrapping around the fight right now, which is pretty interesting.
Both teams are. As Peanut and Chovy are going for an angle here.
Where'd they go?
Well, he shows, and they're going to try to collapse on him.
I think he should be fine.
Yeah,
I mean,
he is.
He's just hanging around on the flank as everybody's trying to collapse onto him, but he's an Ahri who is level 12 and is kind of just running circles, can ult if necessary. We do have
just like, all right, if you guys are going to chase,
Herald in mid, as
bring around the Rosie
are still on the chase. As okay, that's me tier 1 for free. KT gonna take that one down, and with that, finally take the gold lead in this game.
I think KT, they really had a troublesome situation there with BD not able to get in, and then GENG didn't punish.
Lehens in a really rough spot. He's got to charm and just get out as Keen on the front line here. They can't really leave him to the wolves. He's got to ult away. As yes, he is very tanky, but the second Chovy starts getting some of those hits in.
No ults used.
Okay, here we go. Big Everfrost on the 2, but BDD has no follow-up as Chovy is trying to zone them. Pays zoning Lehens, but the front line is huge here for KT as Keen continues to tank. The Vi ultimate comes in on the Doran, and the damage not quite there. Peanut now, both side of Pays. They have the front line this time, and they're able to push them out. Zombie Scion not going to do enough. And that's going to be GENG actually winning the fight.
2 Scions at the end there. Love that one. And even though Chovy goes down early, the follow-up damage is there for GENG.
Yeah, it's going to be a TP to the top side here. They're just going to cut their losses, try to get some more damage done to the turret. It looked really bad there for KT for a moment at the very beginning of the fight when BDD couldn't get in. But then GENG waited for a long time, decided to collapse very late. This is going to force a TP. They decided to collapse very late, and then they end up getting the turret. Now this is Lehens baiting this fight here because he's got a Scion in the brush. But he ends up taking way too much damage. The re-engage here is beautifully played, and you can see BDD knows the exact angle he wants to take here. Hits the entire team, basically, with this Everfrost and Orb, and then it's collapsed upon. But as you say, not enough damage to finish off, but the better front line here actually ends up being GENG's, as Keen is still wounded from that earlier exchange.
And what's key here is 2 big teamfight ultimates are missing, right? There is no quickness, and there is no ultimate for Scion. And if they have those available, Lehens has way more threat in the backline, but instead, even though aiming gets a really nice recall, as Chovy gets out of his stopwatch, is able to blow him up. And the target selection for GENG wasn't optimal. As soon as they get a kill, you're still going to have to vacate the area to deny Peanut from popping off. And by the end of it, the turret trade, favorable for KT, but getting that Hextech means no soul points. GENG remain in a relatively even position here, and this is a great opening game. So even, look,
it's an amazing game right now. And GENG also, look at their summoners. Doran doesn't have his flash, but aiming, having to cleanse, having to flash on that last fight, his Gale Force also helped him escape, so he was able to get out, but now he's very vulnerable. Yeah, he's going to have his ultimate, so he's fairly, escapable, but Keen also flashing, Lehens not having his flash, so in upcoming team fights here, GENG definitely have an extra edge with those summoners, so getting more than just a Drake in that last fight.
Cuz and squad getting pretty deep in there, clearing out vision around the Baron. A lot of our teams at the top of the table have been pushing the Baron fights earlier and earlier, namely T1, of course. Kind of starting with that, and a lot of teams following suit. And it was kind of funny that last fight, you know, it really felt like a battle of the mid laners. Like, BDD went in as Chovy went in at the same time. Chovy zoned the entire team and he kind of died for it, but then BDD had no follow-up, and then the Spirit Rush was down, so it was kind of cool, like the two mid laners passing in the night as they both go in for their engage and their pick with their champions.
So I want to highlight that Doran, even though he got solo killed early on, has actually been doing a lot of side laning work and had a call. So actually hit his 2-item spike earlier than Keen, and that it's not really going to matter too much for Keen's side of the matchup because he's Sion, he will do his job no matter what. But it does mean that, as we saw there earlier as well, the Jace will be a more relevant threat, and that wasn't really a given with how the early laning phase played out.
Just gonna be laning.
And does mean that KT might be feeling forced. What is big though is BDD is about to hit his death cap, and he's going to have it for this next fight on the second Hextech Drake here. That could be a big difference maker.
KT really just trying to punish someone here, but it's Lissandra in top, so they can't actually make that happen, and Paze is just respectfully positioned here. He's got this wave back under inner, so KT trying to use Baron as a threat while also trying to go for a dive, but it's not working. Is aiming, looking for maybe a collapse here onto Doran.
The Xayah gank is just going to sit here on the bot side, yeah, and he's actually just ganking Doran, who is 100-0 and has no way to get out. I think he was about 2 seconds away from his flash, unless that's a bug. So, yeah, he just gets it now. And KT, they've got the timers unlocked today.
KT, they really do. And in this moment, you could tell KT have so much deep vision from top to bottom on the map. And getting that early mid-turret allows them to make plays like this. Paze is safely farming. It's a Lissandra top. You can't. We have enough damage. You have ult. Let's go kill Doran. I don't think his flash is up. Worst case scenario, you force his flash there, but because his flash isn't up, you grab him, grab a turret, and tons of money's in your pocket here in this low state for KT. 1 minute until this Drake spawns, however. Those flashes still not quite up for Lehen's and aiming, and this is going to be very critical. It's just really easy setup here. Slow into the ult, into the Q knockup. The root comes through, aiming. Doesn't even need the pullback here to kill him.
Yeah, as you can see, as Valdez
was not able to join this fight, whereas Paze, he's getting a lot of damage in onto that front line. Peanut able to zone, aiming away, who has to cleanse. And now Chovy having the front line in this fight, as the damage from the Aphelios may finally take out Keen, but no, he will survive, and Delight goes too deep. He'll be the first one to go down, and the turnaround comes in big from the side of KT. 3 kills go to KT.
This has been incredible team fighting from KT Rolster, and it looked doomed at the beginning. Keen went super low, aiming is forced to ult, and he's not doing any damage in the fight, but the chase goes far too deep. And with the death cap damage coming through from BDD, those orbs hit, and they hit hard. And he ends up doing so much, and it's the Vi and the Ahri that clean up house as aiming comes back through. Now he's got a rapid fire cannon picked up here, and they are going to turn this into a Baron play. But KT Rolster 8 kills to 2 now, 3,000 gold in the lead. Make it 5,000 with that Baron buff coming through, and man, this game is looking really rough to recover from now.
And you see the desperation because Genji know if they can get a kill, they can win the fight. But the problem here is that Keen is monstrously fed and Pace only has a BT. He doesn't have any armor shred, and the rest of the team is just not good at killing this Sion. So Keen buys so much time, and Pace doesn't actually get to hit any backline. And then I think here, crucially, Delight, looking desperately for that kill, is going to go in way deep in the attempt to try and get the kill. He immediately gets focused down. Keen has an amazing flash, which makes sure that Peanut doesn't get the reset, and because Chovy had to build defensively, they don't get a single kill. Now a Fur Dragon, Soul Point will go over, addition to the Baron, and KT look to be in firm control here in this first game.
Yeah, and I think we have to remember too, like the whole storyline about the Paze being a rookie here is you know, not really necessarily going to come full circle, because he's a player who has looked so calm all season long. He's that type of player. He doesn't get pressured. He doesn't actually make big mistakes. But Delight, in this case, it's his first finals. It's his first time playing a crowd like this. For those who don't know, he spent his entire career before this season on Fred Freon. He's only been in 1 playoffs, let alone being in a massive arena like this. And he wants for the kill, and he gets punished.
Well, you can't really say the same about Doran, who unfortunately is going to get caught out here. Finally does get devoured, but there's the root onto the Tom Kent, and now Delight may have to pay for it. Down he goes as KT find the pick, and now we're looking for more. They still have this Baron for 1 minute and 20, and they are absolutely going to look to take a big chunk out of this map.
It is a good look for KT fans right now, and this is potentially going to be a loss for GENG on blue side, which can really morph this series in a bad way.
Oh boy, here we go, just straight up flash, says 100-0. No, he is going to get into the Frozen Tomb at least, but Chovy, not in the best of spots, does go down in a trade for Cuz, but KT will take that. So he will take down the turret, and they're just trying to fight front to back here. Some low health bars though, as Keen is just trying to survive, and nobody can get through the Scion's health bar on the side of GENG. It's just impossible.
It's a Scion with the Jack shows. He's got Wardens now as well. He's just so unkillable. And I mean, remember, this is KT on red side where they didn't have two solo lane counter picks. And this is Doran, of course, getting caught, and this is the power of Ahri also. You have so much follow-up, even if there's a Tahm Kench to save you, the Tahm Kench then gets caught. It's very difficult for him to avoid the follow-up here, and you can only go so far. But this is a KT Rolster with a Scion into Jace. You could call that a counter pick because it's strong, obviously, into Jace, not great for the lane. And an Ahri blind into Lissandra on red side. A scary prospect, really, when you think about how this series could unfold. This is just game one.
And if Peanut's there, as they get that counter kill on Vi, then maybe they can get something going. Not going to be the case. Instead, we see Keen still doesn't care. And until LDR is there, Pace does have it done now. He is not going to, as Randuin's done as well. So even now, it's going to take an incredible amount of time. And KT, they were able to get the topside inhibitor turret. They are currently also looking towards, in 2 minutes, that Drake, and they don't even have to take that. They can also just take Baron and let GENG have a second Hextech Drake and not care, then use the Baron to end the game, because the base for GENG wide open here.
Yeah, it feels like the LDR is just not going to be enough here for Paze to break through this armor. There's too many threats, and then you're looking at a Lissandra who has a death cap here set up, but does it really matter? She's not going to be able to break through the front line. If she doesn't get on top of Azaya, who has Gale Force ult, right, and so much peel, yeah, this composition doesn't really work from behind like this. Yeah, we don't have map control.
Exactly. I feel like if they were ahead or at least even, you start to get the snowball rolling. You have Frozen Brawls coming out. You have Viego resets coming out. You have an Aphelios in the fight, right? You can get some stuff going, but I feel like, you know, as you guys were talking about some of the desperate fights that GENG were taking in the mid game. Aiming is in the middle of nowhere, and he might just die. Down he goes. A full shutdown goes over as TP now for Keen. He's trying to help his team, as, I don't know, that's just 2 free kills over to GENG. And we got a minute 14 until this dragon is coming up. So GENG with a nice little bonus here.
Yeah, there's so many bounties. BDD's just going to blow his teleport mid as well to try to keep this turret alive. But he's now vulnerable. What a huge throw here, unfortunately, for KT in this game. It's not enough necessarily to save GENG here, but a huge blunder from aiming. Doesn't flash the engage, thinks he's going to be able to get out, then has to ult and flash, still doesn't get away. And he's just up here.
And this is something that we haven't seen from aiming all year. This was a problem for him in the past. We saw this last year, aiming being too far forward every now and then. He can't die, and what's even more crucial is, yes, the pick's nice, the shutdown's big, the gold matters, but cleanse and flash are used. And that means that only Featherstorm stand between aiming and certain death. If Chovy or Peanut get on top of him, and all of a sudden, GENG still behind, KT still in control, but the game looks somewhat playable again.
2 teleports gone too. Keen commits to his teleport to die, unfortunately, hoping they can turn that because everyone's in the vicinity, but you can't do that without your AD carry. The BDD teleports mid to fail to save a turret, and now GENG get this Drake essentially for free. Such a difficult team fight to win here for KT, as you mentioned, without aiming having those summoners.
I think you'll let this one go.
I think you should.
Yeah, I mean, KT ahead in the gold, but all the things you guys just mentioned, a little bit too much, and they will have to give that one away, as it is another objective bounty, by the way, that goes over to the hands of GENG alongside of just being a straight-up Hextech Drake. So Keen, by the way, he's on 3.5 items. Nobody really does damage to him, as they will eventually, but that is a double knock-up that comes in, and the counter-engage is massive from the side of KT, as they go deep in onto Pace, who does have a front line, as the follow-up Pace gonna Gale Force out to the tar, way too much, and he can't get away from literally everything on the side of KT, who will win the fight.
Beautiful plays from BDD coming on the flank angle. He's doing so much damage this game. He doesn't even have his Void Staff yet, but he's still able to make big damage happen here with these orbs. Lehens?
Yeah, he's just stopping the back here. KT looking for the end of this game, and I believe that they do have it. We are 32 minutes in. And Lehens, even if he does go down, he has done his job.
What a game one, a statement game from KT on red side here.
Yeah, a little bit of a slight mess up there right towards the end, but a win is a win. And it was dominant for about 31 minutes out of the 32, so they got the job done. Might be breathing a little sigh of relief, but BDD comes out and he brings out the carry stick, and he's like, okay, I'll take care of it from here.
BDD playing the Ahri into the face of Lissandra, drops waves of minions to put the pressure on in the bottom side. He is losing in the CS battle. He is not having prio, but he's still making proactive plays around the map and saved so many of these desperate team fights where aiming is pushed away, can't do damage. His flanks were incredible. His Everfrost usage empowering his damage build to do exactly what it needed to, and was a big part of all of those counter engages for KT. And man, what a great early game.
Very good defensive.
And a great game to start it off as well. And we going into the game talked about mid jungle, Cuz and BDD. And Cuz and BDD to me were the big difference makers, right? BDD with a couple of key catches, but Cuz also making sure that not only did he deal with the early pressure that was put him in with the vision control, but in every single team fight he was able to single out force cooldowns, even in the final fight, right? The reason why FaZe was able, right for the picking for BDD, was because Cuz was able to force his flash, force his guild force, get him over the wall, get him isolated, and yeah. Well, FaZe looked fine in this game. Doran and Delight, their struggles continue, right? We see Doran, even though he was able to bounce back a little bit, team fights weren't looking great, and Delight we already talked about, not the type of performance that you need if you want to best KT.
Yeah, I don't think we'll be seeing any more Tahm Kench necessarily in this series. I thought it was a great pick for the lane, and they were very well prepared for what they expected to be Rakan Xayah. I thought looking at this draft, Genji are winning on all accords, right? And you have the Jace into the Sion, should be pretty comfortable. You have Viego, Lissandra. You have a free lane for the Aphelios to get fed. He started Cole, but they just couldn't get through the mid game.
Wasn't enough to get over the line. KT, the more dominant team to start us off in this best of 5. So a fantastic start for them. Guys, we'll take a break and we will have the space here at Jamsil Arena right after this break.
내가 최대한 운영해줄게. 오늘 느낌이 좋다.
느낌이 오잖아.
나이스. 비에고만 떼자. 혹시 내절만 조심. 확실하게 이기자. 아 저기 있네? 뭐야?
내가 끊었어.
다음 판 잘해봅시다.
나이스.
얘들아 캐리해줘.
근데 너무 추워. 추워서 그런가? 왜 이렇게 못하지? 그냥 못하는 걸로.
Five-minute break. Feel the view, siêu. No? No. Very chill song. Oh, what? Jinx. Yeah, I know for a fact this is copyright. No. 31 minutes into the man.
impressive game coming through here from KT.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Jumpshell Indoor Stadium space. I'm once again Atlas, joined by Orcs and Huni here, and I want to start off with a little bit of a story. I remember like it was yesterday, 2019, we had another best of 5 at this exact stadium.
Yes.
Lehens was there, Chovy was there, both of them playing their hearts out. But I also remember that it was a 3-0, and after a game like that, game number 1, we could be in for another one unless GENG turns things around. Gentlemen, let's start off with the draft here. We felt pretty good about what GENG put together.
Yeah, I kind of like the early Jace, meaning they had it as a flex. And then what you saw was KT went for the Vi. They wanted to pair it with this Ahri that they picked on 4. And instead of this beautiful Viego-Lissandra, which is, you know, Lissandra is a good matchup into the Ahri. And I love the Viego-Lissandra combo in these skirmishes. So I felt like they had a pretty big edge at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of clearly can see, like, from the GENG draft, I think they might be been screaming against the T1. Like, that's what T1 will do.
Yeah.
Like, Viego-Lissandra with the Jace top. But I think it's like, it's the same thing. You need to get through the lane phase. Like, this is a professional, like, at the level. Like, if you lose from the lane phase, you can't come back. It's really tough.
Yeah, and we saw that, honestly, the draft did not mean much at all. Because apparently, it's not about the matchup. And of course, Sion often nullifies Jace. It's often one of these picks that can do very well into the matchup, not because it wins, but because it doesn't lose. But Keen, he's convincing me otherwise. I have a feeling that maybe this is just a straight-up 1v1 winning matchup.
Yeah, and bear in mind, he already burned his flash earlier to this play, which is why he's able to find this all in. Just dominated him, constantly threatening the laning phase, getting his solo kill. Just massive.
Yeah, I mean, also I did mention if you're not good at Jace, just go phase rush. That's why I also I never go Conquer when I play Jace.
And here towards the bottom side, this is happening almost at exactly the same time. And I want to draw your eyes to the mid lane as well, because we can see Chovy, he can't come down because the inside track is being owned by the Ahri.
Yeah, you even see he actually gives up and starts walking back because he knows he's not going to be there in time. Great call as well from Cuz, not to flash to try and kill Peanut there, just take the kills that already confirmed. So it started off well for KT. It wasn't always clear sailing. There were some mistakes, but the momentum was in their favor.
Yeah, I mean, I really like the Cuz, like the patience. Like, he didn't go for the Viego flash play and just wait for the Ahri to come and then just like actually kill the AD carry, which is the most important person, like at the bottom. And the game's gone. Like, you can't really come back after that because it's like the Xayah was way too ahead and they had to GENG make the play like for a Herald. Like, they over-invested, but the thing is that it didn't really go well.
And there were a couple of times where there were some picks that GENG were able to pick up and the game got a little bit closer. But then this happened. Let's jump into our highlight number 2. And this, another demonstration of patience here from KT, but some mistakes from GENG as well.
The thing is, with the comp of GENG, it's so hard to engage onto the Ahri or Xayah, so they just kept hitting the Sion, and the Sion just stands there and takes it. He creates so much space, he does so much damage with the Sunfire burning away, and it's just like GENG are constantly re-examining, trying to find a way to approach, it's not working. And watch here, they're trying again and again to take out this Sion, and in the end, he still doesn't die.
Yeah, I mean, I think the GENG really overextended, over-make a play, overextended, like the deal, like some reason he went in, but the thing is, like, still, they won the fight. Like, first point, they could have just gone back to the Drake, but the thing is, like, they over-invested, basically.
And this was kind of the story of the game. There was multiple fights where GENG couldn't find the right approach, and they just kept hitting the Sion, and he tanked so much, he felt almost immortal.
He definitely did, and now let's give him his POG as we'll bring it up onto your screen. Keen, absolutely ridiculous. We haven't actually seen, here it is. And it felt pretty obvious to me because I don't know how he does it. He carries on anything.
Yeah, I mean, I was almost a bit disappointed he came out the Sion game 1. I expected him to be playing more of the carries, but this shows how he's diversified his pool. One of the concerns with him before in the regular season was, you know, not as comfortable on these tanks, but he just dominated this matchup. And the thing is, in the team fights, he played it so well, was creating so much space for his backline.
I said it like before the game started, like he could actually solo kill like Doran like pretty easily, but I didn't expect that this was coming. He was a Sion into Jace, and then he make that happen again. And he absolutely deserved getting POG. Like the team fight positioning was really, really great, and then even making silent play like this type of thing. Like this is Sion, man.
And not to hit too much on him, but this is not going to be good for Doran's confidence in the start of the series, right? Game 1, to go into that situation, you're going to feel rough.
Yeah, that's very true. A few votes for Cuz and one for BDD as well. They definitely played well, but to me, it was all about King. It was all about how much he dominated that top side of the map and created what felt like a skew in what was a beautiful draft here for GENG. We'll see whether they can go back to the drawing board and do it again. We'll also see what side they have selected as well, because I think that is going to be very important. But now, it is time to throw it back to the casters and get in to game number 2.
See you tomorrow.
Thank you, Atlas, Ox, and Huni, as we are jumping into game number 2. KT Rolster very dominant in that first one. And all of our predictions were very close, 3-1s or 3-2s, mostly 3-2s in either direction. But KT, they looked like the much better team to start us off. I really want to see something more out of GENG here in the second game.
I agree. Not only did KT look good, but there's also questions coming into the day about the form of Doran and the Light. And after game 1, those questions are not looking, well, the questions are fine. The answer's not looking too hot.
You're not liking the question if you're a GENG fan.
No, you definitely are not, and it's only one game. But it does fit the trend of what we've been seeing from these two players, and if they don't find a way to make sure that that doesn't happen, that those two individually are unable to match, then KT's too good, right? Like, I think GENG shown at times that they could match, but if you give Keen leads, no, it's not happening. Can't allow yourself to get in that position, and it's something that GENG is going to have to fix, either in draft, either in side selection, or in how they play, because otherwise, could be the quick 3-0, nothing to see
and
here.
It's so difficult, like you say, you can't give Keen those leads, but he just gets them.
He does.
He gets them against anyone. It doesn't matter who he's playing against. He did it against Zeus. He's doing it against Doran, of course. Is there any top laner in the LCK that can match this guy? I'm not sure.
It's wild the ways in which he has shaped this top lane. And at Sion into Jace, things can get much worse if they don't get that Jace first pick and he has a counter pick into a matchup where he's actually going to have the control, where he's actually favored in the matchup. And, you know, it's not that Sion can't beat Jace, we just saw it happen, but the ways in which he did it and the mistakes that Doran made make you want to celebrate Keen on one side, but makes you worried, as you're saying, about that question we still have to answer. And GENG picking blue side again here. This is unsurprising, but that does mean, of course, as I was saying earlier, that if we go 5 games, KT will now actually have pick priority in the final game.
And what's the big thing to me, as we head into this draft, is GENG's draft was not the issue. But can you really draft like the same style, which I would expect to come out here, and fix those issues just with a little break? Couple of encouraging words from the coach, because I would not be shocked if GENG just straight up lock that Jace again. And then KT can just play confident, as you point out, even if they do end up losing here, they will be the one who will be able to pick their sides.
We're
swapping it around.
I love this buy ban.
We're missing the Malphite ban, guys, so that Jace priority, we'll have to see where that is as well.
Yeah. We'll see what GENG want to do. We might just see them completely change this up. They could also go themselves for Rakan or Isaiah pick here early in the draft and completely shift to a different playstyle here. But then you give Keen Jace, right? And if Keen gets Jace, you know, you don't even worry about him into the Maokai, or sorry, the Malphite, excuse me. Let's see what GENG want to go with here. It's going to be the Wukong first pick. So a very flexible pick that has a lot of different outs. This is going to give KT the opportunity to go Rakan. And will they pick up the Jace themselves or wait and see? That Malphite's still a big threat.
Wouldn't be surprised to see the Viego picked up here. If that is the direction that Cuz wants to go in, much in line with what they did game 1. Lock Rakan, lock a jungler, and then go for the Xayah here on third rotation. Unless GENG pick it away, which I don't expect they will, we're going to see the exact same thing. Maybe it's Aphelios Nautilus this time around, but no! That is a big switch on.
Yeah, and a lot of teams would just instantly lock the Lissandra here, but I think BDD is considering just playing Veigar into this. He's played it a lot. Now, obviously when you pick it this early, you will have to choose between that Xayah and the Veigar if you want to do this. GENG can now ban the Veigar and the Lissandra if they're concerned about it.
As the Viego already locked in gives you a lot of different avenues, a lot of different angles you could take.
Bro.
It'll be the Xayah that's locked in here. Unsurprisingly, but KT could have gone a different way.
And I wouldn't be surprised if KT just banned top laners and then have team counter pick. But no, going to be some safety away here. Fresh at the very least. But crucially, yeah, what?
Any Malphite?
Yeah, I'm like, ban the Thresh, maybe ban away a Tom Kench, and Malphite stops going up.
Genji's going to ban Malphite, right?
Right?
I don't think there's a way to go.
Or do you ban away 2 mid laners and you say, good luck, Doran?
I think Lissandra...
Because I think Valdez is onto something here.
Oh, I don't know. I think that the Ahri into Veigar is playable. I think letting Paze, one of the players that is performing, play into Malphite is not. Like, but it's so hard because even if they do take it away, the Renata.
I was thinking about.
Because even if they do take it away, it will be the Veigar. So. Maybe just
this is the thing, when you price yourself into the Ahri pick here this early, now you're in a tricky situation where you feel like you have to ban Lissandra, you have to ban the Veigar, and it looks like BDD's got other ideas here. I thought we might just straight up see the Malphite. Now, if you wait though, you can make sure that it's not Gwen, because that's the other ban they could have gone with here instead of the Renata, but that would have forced them to ban the Malphite ban. A Twisted Fate!
The crowd loves that one.
5-0, all 5 games by this man in the mid lane.
BDD.
And BDD, his TF has been an absolute force to be reckoned with. Their picks, their map play, good enough to take down T1. And that says a lot.
The problem with Tom Kench is game 1, he didn't even protect
the Kench is still available. Something that we're going to be super excited about. But you're going to need the safety in what I assume will be...
This for if you're not gonna be aggressive,
very aggressive top laner here as well. You can go for Jax to combine with the TF. You can go for Camille. You can even still go for Malphite and be completely fine. There's so many options here for KT.
Your ADC
and even if Doran ends up going for Malphite, right, you're still going to be countered by King.
They can just play Gwen here. And this is kind of a middle of the road option here. The Ornn. I don't dislike it that much. I think the alternative would have maybe be going for something like a Gragas here in this composition where you feel safe no matter what. But now there's just King can play so many different picks here into this Ornn. You know, we've seen him play Jax in situations like this and control the matchup. We've seen him just pick Malphite to anything, which is the safest and easiest. You've got Tom Kench for the Aphelios, but that alone isn't going to be enough. There are too many threats. You've got a Viego, you've got Gold Card, you've got Xayah Feathers. Paze is your win condition as Gen G, and you just said, good luck, Paze. There's a Malphite, there's a Twisted Fate, there's a Xayah, there's a Viego. And I need you to be the one who's going to carry these fights. I'm going to give you ornaments with Ornn in the late game, and you're going to do damage, right? You're going to live, right? You're going to actually carry each and every team fight. Delight's got your back, right? And after what we saw from Delight in Game 1, it's tough to trust. And KT are playing not only an extremely strong comp in this meta, the best Aphelios shutdown champion, but BDD on comfort in the Twisted Fate. He has not lost on this pick this season. It's a BDD exclusive. And it feels like KT got everything they wanted in this second game.
Big difference to me is that even though I think Paze is going to have a very, very tough time, Doran on a champion which is guaranteed value, Peanut on his Wukong, gives them way more teamfight power than they had in the previous game. Previous fight, it was get an early pick or lose. And now, maybe it's enough, but against how well KT has been kind of pulling apart these type of teamfight compositions with this TF, I'd be very worried if I was a Gen G fan or predictor. So I'm speaking from personal experience here.
And for owner as well, right? Yeah, I feel like Gen G a little bit safer, perhaps, in this draft. We liked what they had in Game 1. This time it feels like KT's taking one step forward in terms of, okay, we're going to pull out BDD's TF right in Game number 2. As, by the way, guys, little side note, a little small one. Whoever wins this series goes to MSI.
And it will be the first time for either of these teams. Neither of them have ever been.
Yep, so whoever wins this one goes to LCK Finals, goes to MSI. Let's see what happens in game number 2. The arena is fully packed. Like, there is not an empty spot here in front of our screens. And man, I can't even imagine what tomorrow's going to look like as well for the grand finals. Today is just kind of the warm-up, the opening act, you know? So Really fun League of Legends here in Korea. Coming to you guys very soon, starting today.
Starting today. And there's going to be grasp for both top laners. Unsurprisingly, we do see, of course, the unsealed spellbook here for BDD. It's going to be very difficult to actually kill this champion who will have cleanse against an Ahri when he is at his most vulnerable.
Do also want to highlight some swap-ups. Chovy this time around going for the Electrocute, has also shown a lot of spellbook, in this case trying to look for short trades and a lot more assassination potential into BDD. And Delight also swapping and going for heal. Previous game, he went for the Ignite, as Bone Plating procced early, as Chovy and BDD. Just trading a little bit.
W taken first here by BDD, so just looking for some of those auto trades. Actually won the trades against Chovy, really utilizing that side push. Even though Chovy did get that electrocute proc, BDD still winning in the level 1 trades. The power of TF.
I mean, nobody knows this champion better than him. It really feels that way. 5-0. Keen 3-0 on the Malphite, which showed up, very late in the season. And aiming also hasn't lost on this Xayah pick. Now with level 2 though, this second electrocute proc gonna really put a chunk in BDD's health bar.
Looking at the bot lane as, unsurprising, Chovy. Pretty good win rate on Ahri. And as you pointed out already, Wolf, 5-0, the only one who's willing to pull it out, and every time that KT have played it, it hasn't even been like with many TF comps about the first ultimate, and that's really, to me, a big difference maker, where a lot of teams feel like they're very reliant on snowballing their TF. BDD can just be there, and the way he plays out mid to late game fights with his TF, how he positions, how he teleports is super impressive to watch. It's going to be very hard for Gen G to deal with. Hayes, by the way, going for call again. This time around does have, obviously, cleanse, because, as pointed out, he's playing into a lot of champions that are going to be tough to deal with here for the Aphelios. But
Gold
no
card.
Ghost, yeah, mainly.
A little knock up here as cleanse used early, pays. And a nice engage at level 2 from Lehens. He's already getting things started for the KT bottom lane.
Yeah, getting the cleanse early, and also now the heal. And when you consider also Pays took a huge hit to his health bar here too. I mean, Aiming and Lehens could try to do this again as soon as they hit level 3. Gotta respect it. Man, it just feels like, in a weird way, Peanut is over here, trying to make something happen here, try to bait, but not gonna happen. But in a weird way, it feels like Twisted Fate is kind of a Chovy counter, because Chovy is a player who is not as known for map movements and early skirmishes and roams, and we saw it in the last game. His Lissandra was often absent when BDD was making teleport plays on the top side of the map and winning skirmishes for KT so well in the early game. And now without Unsealed Spellbook, it feels like Chovy has an even weaker time in this matchup here, where BDD can catch him and then Destiny Gate away. Without Cleanse here ever for the Ahri, it's very difficult for him to ever match this Twisted Fate if he falls behind for any reason.
I actually feel like Chovy was trying, it just wasn't working out, right? Think back to that teleport that he made towards the top half of the map, where they were trying to collapse on Kaz, I think it was, who then just walked it off, right? Those are the type of moments that if you go for that TP, you need to actually make it work. It's something that I think Chovy really improved upon throughout most of the playoffs. But KT, seemingly better in finding map impacting plays. And something that if they can get to do that here in this game as well, they can again maybe put Pace behind early on, try and look for some aggressive plays while Peanut's trying to farm up. Plenty of opportunity for KT.
This top lane, you gotta like this if you are a Gen G fan, although that was a little bit wonky. It's still going to be Doran who is just on very much safety. He gets to sit in the lane. They maybe were expecting Keen to pick the Malphite. Like, there were ways, I suppose, for Keen to go for something a little bit more aggressive, right? Like a Ryze pick even in the top side for some split push potential, or a Camille, We've seen Camille TF utilized by many teams in the past couple of years. So maybe they could have gone for that. Instead, Keen, he just goes to Malphite. They say it's strong enough. This is a free lane for him as well. But it does mean that Keen's probably not going to be getting solo kills. There's no cleanse in the bottom lane. BDD is already here. This is the freest kill of all time. Down goes Pays, and Aiming's going to pick that one up.
And where's Chovy? He's not able to make an impact here, and this is just like the previous game. Chovy's sitting up here with a CS lead. He's going to maybe get some minions deleted here to further that lead, but he's unfortunately just unable to match the play here on the Ahri. not through his own fault, but just because he can't do so. And now without Cleanse, I mean, this is a pre-team fight scenario where you can see the threats of CC on this Cleanseless Aphelios. Imagine with Malphite's involved. Imagine when it's the whole team with the Rakan also trying to collapse. This one is so difficult.
Yeah, this one is on the bot lane of GENG, right? Like, Chovy will just not be able to match the TF if his teleport is down. He's not really expected to. But the moment that TF hits 6, based on the light, they gotta respect. If Cleanse is available, you have a lot more leeway. You can cleanse, you can flash, you can use your summoners. But as I mentioned, I don't think KT is contingent on BDD getting early kills. But if he does and they start snowballing the map early with this TF pick, all hell is expected to break loose very, very early on. Also, thank you very much for, again, a Chemtech trade first. Looking good, everyone.
Yeah, the LoL gods are watching over us, and we hopefully will get another exciting Drake. We did have Hextech Soul, of course, in game number 1. Don't believe either team got it, actually, by the end of it. GENG were able to steal away a couple, but then ended up losing the game. As meanwhile, Keen's just getting played up here on top side. Looks like Doran was maybe going for a little bit of a roam, as we do have Cloud Drake up next, and that means, unless it's Ocean, could have another game-changing soul.
Yeah, notice that Lehens comes here mid to make sure that BDD is safe, and Cuz is also covering, and Doran's scared he might get dove as well, so he has to go over here and get some additional information, and this means that Keen is just going to pick up a ton of money. He's now 300 gold ahead on a Malphite pick here in this early game. Not the most impactful lead, obviously, because Ornn will just be Ornn later on. Malphite will just be Malphite, but still, getting some plate gold early feels really nice here. As yeah, you got first Drake, but it's one of the least impactful ones. Cloud as well, secondary. So not feeling like it's for nothing here, because it is probably going to be a good soul. But you're going to have to win those team fights later on.
Main thing here for GENG is that I think they do have to find a good play around that first skirmish, right? Peanut, now that he's level 6, that he has the power available, needs to start snowballing. Together with Chovy. They need to find team fights. They can't just sit in their lanes, because if you just play laning phase, the team with TF is always going to have a big lead. So it's up to GENG to now make those proactive plays. And for Doran, I think CS and gold is not as important as making sure he doesn't fall behind in XP. And if Cuz can get a gank off, BDD, look at a teleport timer. It's close to coming up, and maybe they can get Herald if Doran oversteps. Won't have to end at just that.
I mean, they have Prio in all 3 lanes, so it's really difficult for GENG to take that fight that you were talking about. KT might have opted out if they didn't have this much control. Lehen's always here in the mid lane trying to track where Chovy is so they could actually be that far up on bottom. They can rotate over if GENG are looking for that Cyclone fight on the Herald itself, but they just don't have the Prio to get it. So yeah, you got first Drake, but KT are going to get the money.
They're going to get the money. They're going to get this first Rift Herald and continue to boost their early game ahead, which is, as we've mentioned many times, definitely a big win condition for the side of BDD, who, or I should say KT. BDD did miss that cannon. As Keen just roams down and Lehens just roams up. We trade objectives. KT, though, sitting on about 1,300, the gold difference. Chovy, 100 CS, the first player to do it in this game, and we'll have to see if he'll be able to get fed and make those plays. He's 17-3 on Ahri for a reason. The guy is fantastic at setting up picks, setting up plays for his team in team fights, and they're going to really need him to set those up for his team in this game number 2.
Yeah, I think Ahri much less binary than Lissandra, so I think he'll be able to do a little bit more than what he did last game, obviously. You know, Ahri is still going to be a champion with a lot of agency, the ability to set up for picks, but also do a lot of damage, whereas Lissandra is just, I go in, I'm CC, that's it. So definitely the lead more important here.
Okay, gonna call an Ornhorn onto BDD, who does have flash, elects not to use it, and does after the fact, but nearly loses his life. As a nice little set play there from GENG. Does not quite pan out, but that is BDD who has to leave the lane.
Nicely done there, and getting the flash. There is Spellbook available. Will mostly lead to Chovy maybe being able, as Lehens is still around here.
Well, we're backing in our own brush. Doran's still quite tanky as they look to turn this one around. Cuz and Lehens maybe going a little bit too deep, as here comes Chovy up the river, as everybody's just trying to flash out of this one, and they do not want to get into that fight, as meanwhile, Keen is getting a bunch of plate spot.
Yeah, he's getting a ton of money. Aiming's on the top side. It's not a fight you can win. You're going to get a TP out of this at least. And man, Herald gets dropped topside here, so you get the gold on your 80 carry anyways, while Malphite gets gold, and you're never really losing those skirmishes.
Okay, nice little setup here. We do not have flash on Cuz. He's going to heartbreak of the wall, but Aiming will not be as lucky. He will be left to the Wolves that are GENG in this case. Nice little damage there, but not going to matter too much. Well, at least he got some plate gold because GENG are able to clap back the kill.
And it's a little bit, but as you're pointing out with the macro play, the overall trade still goes very much in favor of KT. They're able to get a lot of gold onto aiming. Very nice turn attempt there from Peanut, but it does feel a little bit late as...
Here we go. To the top side, and Delight might be the food as, okay, though, Pace is trying to frontline here, trying to do some damage there as with Peanut around. They're actually in a 3v3 as PDD takes way too much damage, and even with the Catalyst is not able to survive through that as here comes Doran. He does not quite have his Ornhorn, but looks like Cuz might be going down here, not able to get over the blast code. And another kill will go over to Peanut, who is on a killing spree.
Huge here for GENG. And, I mean, now this Wukong is really fed. Hayes is going to pick up some additional gold. His cull is now completed, so we'll be able to buy his Gale Force on this back. But that was just so beautifully played from Hayes. He's able to flash the knock up there. And KT opting in to stick around for so long.
They know if they got
Definitely not the play.
the light's gonna eat him.
Overextension here. Going to be a lot of money in GENG's pocket. Now they've evened up the gold lead.
And I do think it's GENG maybe... aiming?
Aiming doesn't have anything as, okay, he's just going to Gale Force away, and that will be enough. It's part of the reason why we go Gale Force on Xayah and not Kraken Slayer, which we have seen in some recent games. Yeah.
As I was saying, I think the feeling of there not being a Cyclone would make KT go, oh, we can go for this. Not really expecting the early damage from the Aphelios here. Nicely done, but KTing at this Drake, you pull it out. They should still be in a fine spot. Key
hard fight
has
to
his
take.
ult, and hey, Pace doesn't have his flash this time around.
Yeah, but they don't have Xayah ult.
Yeah.
Such a risky fight to take here. Yeah, you have Malphite, but you need the damage. Still early game.
Yeah, no BDD ult either, actually.
Yeah, just gonna walk on in, BDD with the Ghost into this fight. Little bit of chip damage, but there's the wombo combo on the BDD and a massive charm into that backline from a hand, but no follow-up damage from the side of KT. It'll be BDD to go down first, but the steal does come in from Cuz as another Hextech Soul is on the rip, but a massive flash in from Toby as KT tries to engage. The Thunderstorm is big. 2 kills for aiming, and all of a sudden, Cuz and aiming are getting the reset. They are getting the fight on this Drake as they are so incredibly low. Toby looking to try to get back in there. As it looks like KT may have gone just a little bit too far. Toby looking for the cleanup, and everybody's trapped in the pit as the charm will land. And that'll be the end of the Xayah. That will be the end of the Viego as GENG fight back in that one.
But all of the kills are on a Wukong. He has 6 kills here, and you still don't even have a gold lead. As GENG, the Drake goes over to KT, so definitely KT playing a little bit fast and loose on this one. Didn't like that they held the Malphite ultimate until the very end, but it was able to get Cuz that first reset. He instantly gets the knock-up when he transforms into Ornn, and that's the kind of way that KT has been playing this series, is re-engaging rather than starting off team fights. Keen here's on the flank. Really nice Devour comes through on the pace to keep him alive. And then you just hold it and go back into the choke point. Ready to turn after the steal here. And notice that as they go into this choke point, the re-engage comes through. Cuz is on a flank, they can't see him. And once he gets that first reset, it's a beautiful fight.
Again, the problem, Delight goes in so aggressively, but the damage isn't there. Second time we've seen this happen. And then everything looks like a disaster. But Peanut at this point is so fed, has a lot of innate mobility, and Cuz doesn't get the ult over the wall. If he gets out, maybe the rest of his team is also incentivized. But Chovy is still full health and level 10. And the initial re-engage, I think a great choice here from KT, but even though it's the jungler, as far as teamfight junglers go, Wukong is the best in the current meta, and a Wukong that's this fed is, I think, still a really, really big threat. Not in the last place, because even the only tanky member on KT, which is Keen, if Peanut gets a Black Cleaver at like 15 minutes, the impact of Malphite in those longer fights, I think, can struggle a little bit more. We'll see to what extent, yeah, in the 1v1 he's still completely fine with the Jack shows. And what we do see here is, again, Goldgraph looking even, but this was kind of necessary, I do think, for GENG, because if they are not able to get anything going in the team fighting phase, and you end up having to try and play into KT's hard engage, Can be very, very tough as... Ooh, cuz.
Sneaky Viego in the bush.
With a Malphite with ult, by the way.
Yeah, well, they're going to catch Chovy here, who does go into Spirit Rush immediately, understanding the threats that do lie in the jungle. So yes, as you mentioned, Keen picks it up. At least Doran is going to be able to have the pressure on the top side. But first, turret blood will go to KT.
I think that the angle here with Peanut having this much money is really important to point out. Like, he's still going to do a lot, and like you said, Wukong is like the best team fighting jungler in the meta, but I wonder if it will be enough, because there's still so many threats, and later on you're going to need range damage. You're going to need more than just a Cyclone and a few Qs coming through from the Wukong. You get forced out of fight so easily. Root isn't going to mean anything here, but you know, if this money was elsewhere, if the Ahri had more kills or if the Aphelios had more kills, I'd feel a lot more confident in Genji's position.
If it's pace that's that fed.
Yeah.
You're feeling great, although again, I think looking at how much single target elimination KT have, I wonder to what extent this is going to be able to play it out, but with how the fights have been going thus far, and a hashtag soul, by the way, again, I don't know if we highlighted already, going to be big as Chovy.
Yeah, he's fine.
He knew. No stress.
It was very close to Flash and Spirit Rush. Would have been pretty disastrous if he did get caught there, but nice little check, little juke there from Chovy. He'll be totally fine.
Yeah, I think the real question becomes, will KT play their team fights with turn like they did to try to set up in choke points to get the resets, or will they actually try to just straight up engage, blow up a single carry? Because it doesn't have to be Pays. It's Chovy who doesn't have cleanse because it didn't go unsealed. That's another threat you could just eliminate right away, and then try to kite out the Wukong with your Xayah. There's just so many different ways to play this proactively instead of reactionarily, and I think KT's decision to fight for the Drake was very greedy there. It was a beautiful fight from them, nonetheless, but definitely it advantaged Gen.G when the dust settles. I think KT should play this a little bit more slow and play more to their direct conditions with the hard engage.
We'll see whether they'll be able to do again have that pick potential of KT.
Well,
BDD right now, because of the ult, thrown towards topside, wasn't able to actually collapse, just TP to the turret that was already down. They might not have that available here, and together with the Heralds, Gen.G could be looking at a second Drake here.
It's feeling pretty likely. Gen.G doing it the old-fashioned way, not pulling any punches, just straight up through the mid lane. And they're going to get a second charge here, potentially. Lahen's looking to maybe hit the eye, but nope, nobody's going to hit the eye, and it just gets another charge on in there. Keen still on the bottom side of the map, as it looks like KT's still posturing to fight for this dragon.
No flank wards for Keen, so he couldn't teleport, and he just pushes the wave and heads over here, but now he's disconnected from the rest of his squad. Knows the positioning of Pays and Delight here, so far away from any engaged threat.
Well, you don't do shit, son.
Still waiting for this one. Lahen's and aiming, able to push up through mid and gain a little bit of pressure, but they do not have vision of that brush. It's Lahen's. He's got to do the job. Somebody has to do it, because they need to get vision of where the threats on the side of Gen.G are.
You could just push away from the Malphite here and keep track of him with this Wukong that's pretty fed and not worry about anything. Gen.G playing this so calmly.
Oh my God.
Charm here on the Cuz, just waiting for that one. He's got to flash away. And all of a sudden, your jungler is basically non-existent here when the Drake is up.
And Keen is non-existent because he can't find access to the carries. Chovy's in the front line trying to prevent KT from getting to the choke point. Pays is way far away in the mid lane. You push out the jungler, there's no threat angle here, and KT just have to walk away.
And I like the response from KT, right? Just see, okay, we're not going to be able to get this. BDD teleports towards top, but losing X-Tech Drakes against the Gen.G comp is still a big issue. And crucially, Doran has been able to keep up decently. I think Keen is like half an experience bar ahead, but once he starts doling out ornaments, things are going to get tough. And as I say, yeah, BDD going top is nice, but giving up a mid turret here, definitely costly. And if they can turn this into a bot side play as well, would open up a lot, but BDD gets the top side turret, and Gen.G with Keen there doesn't want to risk it.
Yeah, I think KT playing very comfortably here in this mid game, where they're like, okay, we can give this Drake. We still have great win conditions in our team fights. Let's not force a bad fight. And the next time we group up for an objective, be it Baron or this fourth Drake here, they should be able to have a setup where they can actually threaten the carries and get in, where Keen isn't kind of trapped and stuck in a side lane where they've lost mid-prio, they've got a Herald crashing through. Gen.G kind of had all the cards in their hand in that last exchange. KT walk away, still get top turret for BDD, by the way, who's stacking his rod. Will have his Lich Bane fairly soon as well. It's a very close game right now, but I think KT will have a fairer fight on that next objective. We're a ways away from that now. But GENG really staving off what looked like it could have been a disastrous early game.
So we enter our first lull state of the best of 5 here, essentially. Both teams not really wanting to take a big play anywhere on the map, right? I mean, if KT had drafted something that wasn't Malphite, perhaps they could have tried to 1-3-1, put on a little bit more pressure in the side lanes, but with Chovy where he is, and if Peanut's ever shadowing, GENG actually have a lot of power in those side lanes, and of course, it's not like a Camille or something. It is the Malphite, so KT will just be looking for those straight-up picks in the team fights, whereas I feel like GENG might have a little bit more flexibility. But either way, it doesn't seem like both teams really want to take a fight until they have, you know, at least another item or at least another objective comes up here.
And I like that you pointed out, Veldas, because I do think that part of what makes KT so good at these as the TF comps is that Keen generally always has side lane pressure. The only player he doesn't is against Zeus, right? So every time that Keen is in a side lane, which, by the way, we're talking about him not being at Reddit, he's still like 1.3k ahead, right? This is still hard-earned lead that he was able to get for himself, but because it's Malphite against Ornn, not going to be nearly as relevant as Doran has now hit level 13 and is going to start giving out upgrades.
They can see you.
Yeah, he almost would have been forced to use his ult here. Wanted to maybe trade one with the Cyclone for a potential Baron take, but
look at this vision control of KT here on the Baron. Just kind of naturally picking it up. There's not a lot of vision here for GENG. They really need to push in as a team, and they will do that now. It's getting a little bit worried for them there.
Now, right now, Doran has teleport, and they have vision control on this Baron. Now, KT, they had a great setup, but they have to now be fearful themselves that GENG could actually wrap around there, especially while Doran isn't showing right now. They just have no idea. The Baron vision is removed. And KT, it's really tough right now. You do have the Destiny Gate, so you could, of course, instantly check, but then you lose one of your greatest tools right before this Hextech Drake does come up. So, very scary time right now for KT. And we'll suss this out there, identify where Doran is. They continue to drop control wards in that pit. Lich Bane is done, not a huge spike here. We're really looking at whether KT can get cryo and get position, I think, for them to win the team fight. GENG have the setup right now. They have a lot of map control.
Yeah, this build from the TF is pretty interesting. I guess they were worried a bit about their AP damage because if he doesn't go for this Lich Bane, you're definitely lacking a bit of that. And, you know, generally you'll see RFC second for Cat's potential, or even Everfrost as well sometimes, just to really stack onto the pick potential of TF. But not the case here. Pretty much just a straight up, you know, burst build, essentially a pretty tanky build here from the TF from BDD.
And from the top of my head, BDD usually is gone for this, and then RFC second in most of the games that he has played. And with aiming not having his LDR available, if we get a straight up front to back team fight where GENG has Peanut and Doran in the front, Chovy off to the flanks and Pays in the back with the light covering, I don't think KT is going to be able to win. It's about can they find?
Lehens, you're on vision. I guess he had no idea. He's just going to be free food for Pays, who picks up his first kill of the game.
A moment ago, he was able to dash, of course, to Cuz if he gets caught like that, but he's just not paying. I mean, he's standing on vision and he gets caught before he can actually dash. Cuz isn't there to support him, so he's just kind of caught out. Doesn't react quickly enough to flash away. And that's that. I mean, that's your support down. That's one of your best engage options. Dead before this Hextech soul, or soul point rather, for GENG.
Oh, and KT, I think, thought that they were going to go for Nash.
Yeah.
With that TP coming in. But that's not the case. GENG looking like they want to play for soul point here instead. And KT caught off guard.
And Peanut, I mean, he does so much damage at this point, he can basically do this by himself while they lock the rest of the KT members out here.
Okay, here comes KT. They really want to take this fight, it looks like, as Destiny committed to Cuz nearby.
Look at Lehens.
Charm used as flash on in, but no, it's going to be the takedown here from Peanut onto this objective as Ornhorn from the pit. Not very good as Lehens in that backline, though. As the Cyclone is getting so much damage, Peanut is going to pick up this first kill, and here comes the rest of GENG just to go straight in after that one. Double kill now for Peanut, who is 8-0 in game number 2.
We saw some of the warning signs in the Live Sandbox series at the very beginning of playoffs of KT's judgment sometimes being faulty here in these mid-game scenarios.
봐줄래? 아이고.
Oh my god,
Oh,
the light
oh,
got over
the wall. He didn't have vision, so that's why he didn't flash it, because the extended range actually hits him, but he doesn't actually have vision at the indicator.
Kane's just dead in the side lane.
Oh my god.
This snowball has turned into an avalanche in favor of GENG.
This game may just be over. We might be seeing BDD's first loss of the season on the Twisted Fate, but going back to the point I was going to make, KT judging Baron versus Dragon has been one of their weak points in the mid game, even when they're ahead. And then from behind, they just look so disjointed here.
And this is what we're talking about. If it's an actual front to back, you're not winning, right? And right here, even with Lahan's on a flanking angle and Pace not doing that much damage, Peanut is so fed that him and Chovy are just winning this fight by themselves. By the time the rest of the team got in, after the duel of Lahan's,
and there's just no reprieve. Everybody on the side of KT's is being hunted down. Now we do have Cuz here. He does come in for the save, but only for a millisecond, as now maybe he's going to be the next guy to go down. Pays. Oh man, not Pays. Peanut 9-0 in this game.
I take it back everything I said about will it matter if he's 6-0. I'll just take it all right back right now.
And he was the first one to get the Ornn upgrade, by the way.
Oh yeah,
just smacking people right now.
Who cares about the Aphelios? There's too many ways to kill him. Let's just let the Peanut carry.
Oh, and right now, it all starts with one pick on Lahan's. Has often been very instrumental in KT winning, and then that TP from Keen with KT making the read.
All right, re-engage comes in.
Peanut coming, boy.
Something going, but even the LDR Aphelios is doing great damage to him now, as he might take his first loss on the Malphite himself. A little bit of a follow-up here, but Peanut is so incredibly fed. He nearly has a GA. Probably has it when he goes back. 27 minutes in.
And this is 3 picks, as you mentioned, where we'll see a first loss here. The Twisted Fate, the Xayah, and the Malphite here for KT Rolster. A comfort composition, truly, but the advantages here stacking up so hard for GENG, and there's just no coming back.
Trying to make it interesting. KT, they still have ways to pick, but I don't know any targets that you can really pick at this point, especially with Tahm Kench in the game.
Oh. And yeah, Infinity Edge done. They're gonna have to rely on a mistake from GENG, because there are still, if Chovy or Pace is off in the side lane without sufficient, even if Peanut is like looking for a flank, gets caught by a Destiny, or Pace doesn't see Keen coming and gets taken down, then you can get it done. But it requires, from this point, I think, GENG to make serious mistakes, as opposed to the previous game where KT was calling all the shots, and even here in the early to mid game where they were able to match. Right now, not matching. Fighting for Hextech Soul going to be excruciatingly difficult, and that Soul, there's generally no coming back from.
Yeah, there's just no way. They need to do something before that fight somehow, but Baron's wearing off here in 20. And Lahan's is caught here by Peanut, so he can't actually set up for the flank, and they're just going to get sieged. There's no agency here whatsoever for the side of KT Rolster. They just can't do anything.
Yeah.
And Keen has teleport, but they don't have any flank wards for it to go to. So GENG are just like, all right, well, as long as we clear our back, look both ways before you cross the street. Essentially, make sure there's no way that Keen can get there and come around, set up for a flank for them the Rakan to engage. You just constantly play around Prio and Vision. You wipe it off the map. You sit around for another minute with the Prio you've already gained from Baron. The inhibitor that you have down as KT here means that it's so difficult to get to that Drake itself. And I mean, I'm not saying it's impossible here, but it is going to take basically a miracle for KT to take this one 2-0.
BDD almost rapid fire.
Pino was sitting on like 2,000 gold, by the way. He went back, bought GA and a pickaxe. So not only is he, he has the ability to come back from the dead essentially, he's going to be smacking people around. He has so much damage at this point in time.
And not just him, I think Chovy with that weight might have, because that was one of the saving graces, there was no death cap. But now,
he's got it.
Good luck with this one, KT.
I mean, Lahan's is not even here.
I don't think luck is going to help him actually at this point.
I think they're hoping for an Elder Flip. They're hoping for an Elder Flip.
The Elder Flip angle?
That's never the angle. This is the LCK move.
Yeah.
There's no way.
I know.
Not challengers here.
But that's still in.
Are so far ahead in this game, it is incredible, as they are going to take down the Hextech Soul with 3 Hextech Drakes. So they have ornaments. They also have Hextech Soul, and all of that is so much bonus gold on top of what you see at the top of your screen that it's pretty mind-boggling.
So KT need to both, see, they instantly gave up Hextech and then they went straight topside to set up wards here for Baron. The timing of this is not great because GENG can still group here and help clear this. So they need to both deal with this mid wave and the pressure that's going into their base while also then maintaining that vision and grouping for Baron so they can take a fight they want. It's essentially checkmate here for GENG. At least they were able to get some vision around Baron and set up some flank wards here. Maybe that's the way, that's the play. Maybe Keen make something crazy happen here. But you need to somehow then deal with this wave. So GENG are already over here. They cleared all the vision that was around the Baron pit, except those flank wards that could come into play.
Look at how they're playing. Every single time, like Chovy didn't push up there until Doran was close enough. They're making sure that no one gets picked off by a ultimate from BDD. Because if you can find a collapse, you can get an individual member started off that way, you can get something going. So Peanut doesn't care at all. Should he?
Because they can't all in him because he's got GA and the entire team is right there, so.
He also has Merc Treads. I mean, it's hard to CC him and then collapse on him. And if you actually dive on him with all of your follow-up CC, like that's not a carry you can kill. That's a Wukong who has Warriors, Trickster, and Cyclone. So you don't want to be piling on top of this champion. So the win condition is shifted away from an Aphelios into this unkillable Wukong. And this is what I'm talking about. KT just can't get in here. Maybe a teleport flank. It's the only way I see them having an engage opportunity here.
We even have a second item for the support. Delight just picked up Redemption.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much stacked here in favor of GENG. Like, especially in the LCK, you don't see supports getting their second items very often, but we do see Delight pick it up. And that just means that in these team fights, you need to burst someone down, but it is very difficult.
Peanut's unseen.
Well, he is going to be seen by this control ward, and that is going to force KT to just back away. As he's still looking for the angles, because we know that he can. KT absolutely respecting him, but the two-man knockup goes in. The Devour is immediately there. The damage not quite. As they do try to go all in on
Aphelios is still alive.
The Redemption keeps him alive, and that is going to be nearly a full wipe here in favor of GENG. They are chasing down every single member of KT, as it looks like maybe only BDD and Lahens will be able to get away. Even a teleport to zone them away from this one. GENG absolutely going to run away with game number 2.
Looks like we got a tied series here after the second game. And what was a great draft from GENG in game 1 is shut down. KT with their comfort picks. BDD's Twisted Fate aiming on Xayah and Keen on the Malphite, and they still can't get it done.
And there you go. Even a little bonus kill on the BDD. Put him in 0-5 before going into the next game. Just to add that little bit of extra salt. As there you go, GENG. They have given us a series that we now have on our hands. A 1-1 score here, as there will be no 3-0 to either side.
Never tell me the odds is what GENG says. Never show me those stats for the enemy champions. And, I mean, this one is all about KT taking really bad fights around objectives and giving so many kills over to Peanut, but then also continuing to double down on those plays and fighting in positions where they had no right to, and giving up map control meant they could never play their comp as it was designed to do.
And I do think, credit also to GENG, Doran having a much better game than game number 1. Yes, the matchup plays a big part in that, but at the very least wasn't bleeding gold the same way, which is when we can see if mid, AD, and jungle can line up, GENG is a force to be reckoned with. And even with the early kill that went over to BDD, right? The first ultimate working out amazingly. GENG kept their cool, made sure that they were able to play to their power in the skirmishes. And in game number 1, it was about GENG going too deep and getting punished. In this game, it was exactly the opposite. And I do think that even though that first play worked out, besides that, the TF was basically invisible and wasn't able to find value with any other ultimate. So it was the opposite of what we normally see. We're like, oh, first ult doesn't go well, you're in trouble. First ult was great, but after that, we're unable to find anything.
Yeah, I think that one dragon fight was really the defining moment.
Yeah.
Really hard forcing there when they didn't need to, and now the momentum back in GENG's hands.
Absolutely. Nobody predicting the 3-0 for a reason. This is going to be a very close series down to the end of it, as everybody's so happy to be here. Even Doran, a big smile on his face as well. As GENG have tied it up, guys, we will have another commercial break, and we will be back with the space. We'll be right back.
괜찮아. 좋아. 트페 노플. 잘 막아 이제. 트페 노플 천천히.
위로 와.
각 많이 좋아. 라칸 노플.
이겼어.
눈내라. 넘어자. 라인 가도 될 듯?
할게요. 라인 가자.
트페만. 나 트페.
트페 노플이야. 트페 노플.
트페 나 좀. 그냥 미드가 있어.
Opportunity for the young, happy seeing the young. Synergetic soul. Feeling safer in everyday life. Hey, see mine, safer soul. With the innovation, you with the exciting, futuristic soul. Inspire the world, transition and technology, living global soul. Stand up for the world, Fair City soul.
Nothing left to lose. See me coming through. I'm fighting demons on my way, and I know the other side. Oh, I keep on making waves. I dream of making waves.
What are you ready? This is Valorant. Oh, what game? What? This Valorant. 감사합니다.
GENG, game number 4, back to your regularly scheduled programming. What an impressive game coming through here from KT.
Welcome back to the space, ladies and gentlemen, the Jump Shell Indoor Stadium edition. And GENG, they've done it. They've tied up the series. They've managed to stop the Twisted Fate onslaught from KT as well in the process. And we didn't mind the draft from KT, gentlemen. Let's start with that. Let's talk about where things might have started going wrong.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of the Malphite. I feel like you've had Keen, who's been so good in Doran, and you pick this tank face tank matchup where you're never going to have pressure. And then when it comes to the team fights, it's like, okay, who are you going to ult? the only target who's easy to ult is the Aphelios, but he has a Tom Kench, and we saw if you fall behind and you ult the Aphelios and a Tom, he'll survive long enough to get out the CC to be able to ult him, and it wasn't effective. I feel like when you have that R5 pick, you can do so much more, especially for a player like Keen.
Well, I mean, I did kind of mind the KT draft as not you said it. Like, the thing is, like, I was like unsure. Like, I would say, like, I was not fully able to understand like what KT was thinking, because like they banned Renata instead of the Team TK as well. And also, the thing is, like, they picked Malphite into Ornn when they could actually pick Jace. Like, there's so many other pick that we pair way better with the TF. But the thing is, like, Keen did solo kill with the Sion into Jace, so I was expecting maybe Malphite just popping up into against Ornn, but that was not it.
Yeah, and I think this is the biggest part, like the biggest adaptation from GenG in this series was putting Doran on something that can team fight and something that can just get through lane, and it worked out very, very well. Let's jump into our first highlight here. This is a Drake fight around about the 13-minute mark where things really started to solidify. Like already, Peanut was kind of popping off, but this was definitely the beginning of the end for KT.
Yeah, it ended up as a super scrappy fight, and you saw moments like BDD ends up getting caught out. We see KT starting to retreat, and then it actually looks like maybe it could go more in their favor, but we see a not-so-great ult from Keen that only hits one, and then Cuz, this is his opportunity to carry, but he kind of messes up.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's both teams just like really overextended and they keep making mistakes, but both of us, it's like, it's a case, like GenG wants to make them overextended, and it was like a little bit favored for back to the KT, but KT again overextended the Peanut, and they kind of had a mistake from the fight and be able to clean up from the GenG side. And after this fight, the Peanut was way too huge, also Chobi was already huge.
The thing is, you know, when you have a TF who wasn't doing that much damage, the Malphite's obviously not doing that much damage, Viego kind of wants to be on cleanup, you didn't have anyone who could kill the Wukong easily. And he was just surviving for so long in fights, getting so many rotations with abilities, he's doing so much damage.
Yeah, and he actually survived for the entirety of the game. Like, Peanut was just instrumental in this series, and it kept going as we jumped into our second highlight here. Another one around the Drake. This one, because it's Hextech Soul as well, so all of these Drakes are so important.
Yeah, I mean, they had to kind of go for it, but KT, like, almost they win for about 150 HP left, but failed to steal. But the thing is, like, here, like, that's the consequences. Like, they went for the steal. It's not like it wasn't really decisive enough from the KT that, like, if they want to go for steal, then they should just everyone just go back away and then just only cause die, something like that. But the thing is, like, the consequences was way too big. 4 people die, and then go back to the like, or 3 get takedown, and then go. They could still get the Baron from GenG, and they can't do anything.
And it was kind of split because you saw Hens go in aggressively there with the engage, and then it just meant Peanut. I mean, he did the same, but he was like 1v4 in the backline, and just they could not deal with him. And as soon as the team followed up, just devastation.
Yep, and now it's time for the Peanut player of the game. We will award it. Is it going to be Peanut? Of course it will be Peanut. 10-0-3 on the Wukong. This was the first pick this time, and we need to highlight that because last time it was the Jace, and that got solo killed in the top lane. This time, their first pick goes 10-0.
Today's been pretty easy. POG is pretty clean, and that's what the player performance is at right now. And, you know, there's nothing. Like, he has a 0 death, he played perfectly, and he basically hard carried.
Yeah, I mean, he could have had a good game, and they probably still would have won, but, like, he was on point with the smites, securing the objectives, and in the fights, he was an absolute menace. They just couldn't deal with him, and especially, you're playing into Xayah, who's normally good against dive threats, and it still just felt like they couldn't keep a handle on him. You have a TF who can normally CC you and lock you down, but BDD just could not deal with this Wukong.
It's a second game, Peanut, by the way.
Yeah, this is the thing. So, Hooney, we need to talk to you about this because normally it's game 3 Peanut. But this is game 2, 13 out of 13 Peanut.
He kind of arrived a little bit faster than as usual, but we will see what happened to the third game Peanut.
So are we expecting like 20-0? Is that how it's supposed to go? Or do we have him fall off after this? Like, I feel like we're in uncharted territory.
It's unprecedented. We don't know what's going to happen.
It's absolutely insane, but Peanut played an extraordinary game here. I believe that KT have moved over to the blue side as well. If we can briefly touch on that, do we think that that's an actual upgrade here for KT?
I mean, I think they weren't really using the red side in this game too very effectively. Like the fact they just put Keen on the Malphite and the Ornn. So with blue side, you get a bit better priority on picks, and it kind of forces more difficult bans for GenG. Things like the Zeri have to be banned by then. You don't want to give those over. So I assume it's still an edge, but obviously 2 games in a row they didn't have side selection, so this is obviously something that can give them a bit of a comeback.
True. I mean, that's what, I mean, KT could change how they play style from the pick and ban, but the thing is that if they put the Keane on the tank, I think could have been pretty good choice for doing the blue side draft.
Yep, I agree. And we'll see whether that is going to work out here for KT to bring them to match point, or whether GENG can do the same thing. It's time to go back to the casters here for that game number 3.
Thank you guys for the breakdown, as we do have the series on our hands and we need to see who is going to take game number 3. We are nearing getting ready to jump into this draft as KT, of course, selecting blue side, and this should change up the way these drafts look from here.
It certainly should, and you know, there's a lot of prio picks I think that we could see picked up here differently from KT. They don't have to rely on the Xayah. We could even see KT take the first pick Jace that we saw in game 1 from GENG, give Keen the agency, because 2 back-to-back games Keen has played Sion into Jace, then he's playing Malphite into Ornn. In a 3rd game, maybe just give him a little bit more agency, give him a little bit more power in the lane so he could snowball and get your win conditions earlier. Playing around aiming has been KT's MO all season long, whether it's the Ezreal we saw very early on in the season, and later on in the season we're seeing things like the Xayah, right, the Zeri. But Zeri is going to be permabanned in this series. We said it on Pog State, and unsurprisingly it's come true. Maybe just change things up, play around topside a little bit more.
I wouldn't be surprised as well if we see KT have a very similar draft to what we saw in game number 1, where they banned the Malphites to make sure that they can go for the Jace. And I do think that even if we do end up with the same matchup in top, it will go very, very different. Well, I mean, it was Keen favored back then, but I think it will be Keen favored either way if he can get access, which, as mentioned, that to me, much more than mid actually, might end up being the deciding factor, because game number 1 was all about Keen. Game number 2, Keen didn't really get to play the game, although that was also partially due to mid being somewhat shut down. And we'll see if KT can get themselves a draft much more akin to like what they got in game number 1, because I do think that even though that was a red side draft, it wasn't really about a counter pick. Like, Sion generally is not going to get banned away. Wouldn't be surprised if they can get something similar here. Try and put GENG on the back foot.
I would also not be surprised, even though they are on blue side, if we see a Wukong ban to come through here on blue side for KT, because Peanut made such a big impact and it's so good at disengage. I mean, KT has been so reliant on hard engaging. We've seen the focus on the Maokai instead, and you know, we have seen a lot of cool strategies with Sion and Maokai in the early game in Challengers, and I think that if you're thinking maybe they're running Sion, I also want to make sure they're not going to get the Sion and the Maokai together.
So they're going to ban the Vi here as well. Maybe trying to force out a Zeri ban. I think it was probably going to happen anyway. So pretty interesting that you're banning Maokai and Vi and kind of ignoring the Wukong up until this point, and maybe just saying it was Peanut. It wasn't Wukong. That was the reason why he did so much in that game too.
Wouldn't have been surprised if they just B1 it here, right? And then, yes, you might not be able to pick up the Jace, as Ahri, actually, the respect towards Chovy here, even though he wasn't the main character in the previous game, still has a ridiculous win rate on the Ahri. We know how much impact he has with it, and as you're pointing out as well, Wolf, unlike the Lissandra, the Ahri, even if you do get shut down, even if you don't get the 100-0 at the start of a fight, still has a ton of value. Varus going to remain on the ban list here, and Jace or Wukong, to me, seemed like, but it could also be, I was about to say Sejuani, first time she's open.
Yeah, Cuz has been a fantastic Sejuani player. Notice this pick has been the staple for the LCK, 120 games this season. For first half of spring season, it was basically first picked every game on blue side, and it has been so strong, and it's a pick that doesn't reveal really any of your draft. But picks like the Ashe become so much bigger of a threat when you do walk into this. Ashe Caitlyn is up, so you're going to pick up Ellie as it feels safe, but they may end up running one of these very strong Ashe lanes here on the side of KT Rolster. This is one of the powers of blue side here, where you have to show one half of your AD carry as they get the counter on the other side. Is it Karma Ezreal though? I mentioned this on Pog State too. Like, it might be one that comes back. This is the best bottom lane we have seen from KT all season long, and they're going back to comfort.
There it is, Karma Ezreal. And now GENG have to respond to that with an Elise. They were hovering that in game 1 actually on the blue side, but this time Peanut will actually jump onto this pick.
And this is probably now Cassante mid, by the way.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think that when it comes to power picks, KT has everything they could want, right? Ezreal, Karma, incredibly strong, aiming on a self-sufficient AD carry, but they can also play for lane. Cousin Sejuani. But when it comes to the potential of the draft, K'Sante and Elise, no matter where they are, is a really strong combo. And the fact that it's a flex means that GENG can pick themselves up a support here. Although, yeah, Nautilus and maybe even Fresh.
Just takes longer time for him to get
as bans, or well, might be banned away here. But regardless of that, you can pick a support here on R4, and then KT can't get the counter pick, because either you get a bad matchup from K'Sante, you rotated him away, or Chovy gets to play it in mid, which I don't even know if there's anything that really deals with it. We haven't seen the matchup enough. We know how comfortable Chovy is, and then Doran gets counter pick, which maybe neutralize Keen, but he can also just pick Jace and maybe win any matchup. So
new mid lane picks.
Really depends on what KT go here on 4 and 5.
So with the Ahri ban, they ban away the LeBlanc, the Tristan is gone. This feels like KT are fishing for a Kassadin or potentially a Taliyah pick. And Taliyah very weak at the end of the season, as there's the thresh we were talking about. Taliyah can burn through that K'Sante health bar with Leandries. You have Ezreal, so you have a long-term team fighting composition here as KT, where you can play very comfortably front to back into what GENG have put together. You're not worried about the Malphite as much with Ezreal because you have your Arcane Shift, you can get out of dodge, you can be pretty safe. Looks like it's going to be potentially the Sejuani going topside here. I take it back. I feel like BDD wants to play the Taliyah here, and with all the great answers to Taliyah removed, it just feels so safe to actually lock it in right now. And that's rare, because you have to deal with the LeBlanc threat oftentimes. Very tough into Veigar, very tough into Tristana. Kassadin being the other option in terms of late game scaling.
And for GENG, I wonder whether there's going to be another Ornn pickup here. Ornn has a, historically, as it is indeed, as you were saying, Taliyah, BDD, one of his best picks. No surprises there, is going to have a really big impact. But oh, that's a different direction. They can afford to. They have an Elise. And let's not forget that one game, as everyone is, and this, I think, makes a ton of sense. We're still giving agency to Doran and allowing Elise to play off both of the top lane and mid lane.
I like the Gnar a lot better, because now Doran can play around spacing and can deal with the Renekton, because if you end up playing the K'Sante into the Renekton here, potentially you get just totally bopped by Keen. Like, he wins those, and he will crush you in that matchup. And then you're also just still not going to have Prio in mid. So putting the K'Sante mid here allows Doran at least to be a little bit more safe. BD is going to have Prio here against K'Sante either way, but against the Yone pick, for example, things can get really, really rough for Chovy there, and you just don't have any agency, because it's Ezreal Karma on the bottom side of the map. That's going to be a pushing lane. Renekton has power when he doesn't actually have to face a ranged champion on the top side. Now, my concern is actually for the Taliyah here in the early game, because Chovy has shown that even though it seems like some of these ranged picks into his K'Sante should be able to push, should be able to get Prio, he can use his dash to actually get through the seismic shove, and so placement of the rocks on the ground is actually going to be really important for the unraveled earth here for BDD. And this is going to be a skill-based matchup for sure.
And even with the opportunity for that, we've seen GENG play around creative angles with K'Sante as well very, very well. And mid lane going to be very important, because if Karma can just harass the Fresh and the Felios, there's no all-in angle. They're definitely going to struggle, and GENG with pace behind, not going to look nearly as good.
One step to the finals. KT, please win, that said, as this one, of course, Chovy, please get it done. And let's go see T1 on the side of GENG. Everybody's trying to make it to that next step, and everybody wants to see T1. I think there was only one sign that was like, let's go to MSI, by the way. Nope, it's about seeing T1 in the LCK finals. As guys, we do have a game number 3. This series is absolutely on our hands. Could go either way from here as we hop onto the Rift for game number 3.
KT 하나, 둘, 셋. 젠지 하나, 둘, 셋.
And here we go, game number 3 of the lower bracket finals between KT and GENG. Two teams who get a second chance to go to the grand finals.
It's so iconic, the champions we've seen from KT this series. From the Twisted Fate, first loss, BD, arguably next to his Azir, Taliyah, probably his most iconic champion, especially as of late. And then you look at the bottom lane, Aiming and Lehens playing the Karma, basically permabanned against them for half of the season because they were just so good at getting lane prio here and playing around that. And Aiming's positioning on Ezreal is fantastic. And you're playing a composition as GENG that has some ways to engage, but in a longer fight with Taliyah having the Liandry's, which I expect will be the build here, and Aiming having that long-term damage at range, long-term team fights here, the longer they go, if your engage doesn't work out, if your Gnar doesn't actually hit, it becomes very difficult to play the late game here with GENG's composition.
And what's important here is, as you're highlighting, like GENG's composition, even if it is successful, is very short range. Trying to play that in the kite back of Karma, Ezreal, and the Taliyah is going to be very, very tough. And I think it puts a decent amount of pressure on GENG to get things going early. Now, their topside definitely allows for that, and I think that's why the Renekton was prioritized here. As the early game, or the early bot lane rather, there's a reason why Aiming and Lehens, as you were pointing out, Wolf, haven't been given access to this. It's because the first couple of levels, yes.
7-0 is pretty good.
Not bad, yeah. The first couple of levels of Ezreal and
But it's
Karma
not with Karma,
can be
though.
strong. And in the right hands, it can be downright oppressive, which is what we're seeing from Aiming and Lehens there. Pays in the light, getting caught a little bit of guard by that.
And it's not that this comp doesn't have threats either. You know, it's low range for GENG, but there are also ways to get on top of the Aphelios. As look at the pressure here at level 2. I'm going to hit the Q here, but
Jonas Strong is having a field day right now with all these zoom-ins. And it's huge. I mean, yes, they are sitting on a couple more pots. Pace did go for, you know, a bit of an accelerated ability. Didn't go cull or anything like that, but has the 3 potions. No Doran's played in this one.
That's actually such a clear sign as well that Pace is like, okay, I can't mess around in this lane. Like, I need to respect the early pressure. First time he goes call was, yeah, this is why I think they picked the Renekton. It's just so that Keen can be a pressure point by himself, regardless of any intervention. Now, at least it stops up, but they do know this. We did saw the pings. There's plenty of vision as well.
And I think also the Renekton pick here discourages the Cassante flex to top. Because I know it sounds weird to say that because it is normally played top, but actually in this draft it seemed very clearly like it was going mid, and this is just another way of saying like, no, that's absolutely not what you're going to be doing here because Doran just will not be able to handle the pressure in this matchup in particular. And like I was saying before, there are ways to actually punish this Cassante too, because Cassante likes to be up on the front line and look for those ult angles so he can pull somebody out of the fight, but because of the low range here, it's very tricky. But you consider too that like he can just get shoved, and then he's pulled into a Sejuani, and then he's just 100-0 by the Liandry's damage.
Production doing the fans dirty. Showing the win rate of Cassante and then the loss rate of Taliyah with 9 losses in a row.
Somewhat misleading stats, I think, when you consider the drafts, though, and the players that are on the stage.
Most of the Cassante wins, of course, were in the top side. One of them was Faker as well. So, what can you say?
They are aware of that ward, and Peanut will have a lot of early impact, but actually locking down anyone on KT for this Elise can be very, very tough. And we'll see whether GENG can actually get the decisive mid-game that they're going to need. They still have a decent amount of team fighting power, but into the KT comp, I feel like when they have flashes available, as long as they keep track of Doran and his Narbar, actually playing out the game for GENG is going to be very, very tough.
Killing the Sejuani too, you know, with Warmogs coming along becomes also very frustrating to do. You just don't have the weight. Even if you engage on her, if she lives with 10% health, she's back to full. In just an instant, you've used all your engagement.
A very long extended trade here. Doran nearing Mega Gnar, but a good trade for Keen so far. You see the follow-up Boomerang and Hyperproc there, so gonna trade a bit back, but...
Oh, this wave.
He wants this wave here,
Yeah, clearly Keen is very comfortable right now as he goes in for the kill. Doran, not respected, but he will be able to hop away just barely.
He knows that Doran thinks he's safe because his Narbar is set so perfectly there, so he tries to 100-0 him. This does not have the damage, unfortunately, and Doran gets away.
It's still very, very rough for Doran because his wave is still in the same spots, right? So and he doesn't have TP. TP back with a call, and now is going to fall pretty decently behind there. So Keen, even though he doesn't actually end up getting the kill, still a big win. Like, reads Doran so well, right? Doran first like, I want to back, but I can't with the position that my wave is in. Keen punishes him very nicely, but crucially, Doran does stay alive.
Yeah, I mean, they trade flashes. Lane is still in a really good spot for Keen. You know he's going to be feeling good about this position for himself as well. We did see the call picked up for Doran, so maybe he can shore it up a little bit. But, you know, regardless of the many reasons in the draft that you guys accurately did point out, Keen is on a strong pick, right? I'm just happy he's not playing Sion this game.
Aiming is getting plate gold potentially here on the bottom side as Pays will get Lantern to rush back over here, but a lot of farm is going to be denied. They're not actually going to commit, and it is a cannon wave.
Yeah, it's fine.
And he gets it. So actually not that bad here for Pays as the light does go over for the Lantern. The plate is denied. No money there for aiming. Unfortunately, this actually ends up turning back a little bit on them.
Peanut's here. He's waiting for the aggression from Keen. As meanwhile, Cuz is hanging around the bottom side of the map. Maybe just gonna... could potentially start at the Drake, but he doesn't have his bottom lane, so... just gonna take the Scuttle Crab as Peanut is taking the blue buff.
Classic Lahens here. On a roam early on.
Hello.
Uh-oh.
He is on vision, and he's in a lot of trouble. Has to flash here, but Chovy is right into position, ready to take this one down. He will pick up first blood in the KT jungle. As Keen trying to punish this. They do have Cuz coming over as well, but the dominance might be too much. He gets a 3-man queue, but the all-out from Chovy isn't enough to take down Keen is the question. Peanut is just actually trying to get out here. The seismic's up, only hitting one as the rocks are on the ground, and GENG are going to get out.
Oh man, really risky play here from KT though. They get away, and it's not the worst situation for them, but they still end up losing Lahens, and they hard force that fight. And if they lose that fight, the game almost becomes unplayable at this point in time. KT extremely confident tonight, but big risk.
And he's just gonna sidestep that one. He's got Lahens coming on over. Should be just fine.
And that's a flash force. The lights, I think, kind of caught off guard by how quickly Amy, or Lahens rather, made his way back into the lane. Cleanse user as well. Aiming at Lahens, man.
Yeah.
This is why generally, when these guys do pick up Ezreal and Karma, it is going to be pretty terrifying.
Certainly. And, you know, when you look at the state of the game here for GENG, it's still pretty good, but I think KT were trying to do so much all at once at that last exchange. So Lahens is roaming, and Cuz is looking for Scuttle and potentially starting the Drake. They have no control really on top side or bottom side to make that play. They end up giving over a kill, and GENG stabilized bottom side. Yeah, a summoner is expended, but now you know you have top side control. You can turn this into a Herald, and Cuz, this is fairly greedy here.
Yeah, they could actually contest for this. Do know the wave is crashing, so they would have to drop bot wave. But I think, yeah, just Chovy showing up should be enough, because BDD is also catching a wave in mid. Peanut is not in the general vicinity, though, and KT called the bluff and should be able to pick up and trade here Herald for Drake.
I think this is fine for KT. You know, obviously the Herald is valuable in terms of gold. We don't know what the solo's going to be just yet. But it is really important for KT not to lose rather than to get an early lead here, as Lahens is just extremely greedy here. BDD has Weaver's Wall, so he thinks, okay, I should be able to force this if we fully commit. Maybe the expectation is that Peanut is going to be starting up Drake with the bottom side prio while he's gone, because they want to make a top side play. But then doubling down onto this is extremely greedy.
Yeah, as soon as you see the ward, like, Lahens just has to peace out. And then, no, Chovy able to, the planned actually keeping Peanut alive with the repel, and then Chovy landing a 2-man knockup and getting across the wall, making sure that he wasn't available. No one on KT could follow up. As the bot lane still leading golds, leading in lands, keeping up the pressure. Even with Lahens going to top jungle, dying, coming back, they're still able to get the upper hand in this lane, and I really think it speaks to aiming specifically how comfortable he is on this Ezreal.
He's just having a grand old time. He's just farming it out. He's going to be a huge threat when this game comes along. You would have to imagine that the damage should be in favor of KT in this composition. You've got even the Renekton on top of this. We'll take a look at the 7-0 aiming into Lahens on Ezreal Karma. Now, Lahens has played more Karma outside of Ezreal lanes and has taken some losses there. So, but in the Ezreal Karma lane, undefeated.
I would hazard to guess that the amount of times Karma has been banned against KT was even higher than the 7 that you see there because of this.
All of round 2, basically.
Eventually, teams just stopped letting KT play it, and you can see that's where the gold lead is. The only place where there's a gold lead here for KT is in the bottom lane. Is Peanut's going to drop down here and look to pressure them away from this turret. He puts the Herald down.
Yeah,
that's going to be money.
as well. So aiming and lands. Not really allowed to walk up here. If they do, they're gonna die.
Oh, Cocoon. Cleanse comes out here a bit late as CP now. They have a lantern, so the flash mantra Q isn't gonna do much as Toby comes in, tanks this up, the hook lands. That's a ton of damage, does go into the light, but immediately BDD gets blown up as well. That is a lot more damage, a great trade for GENG down in the bottom side. As at least, I suppose, KT stopped the bottom turret from going down.
Yeah, I think it's a fairly even trade, unless Cuz gets caught here, but he will be fine. It's a fairly even trade. The kill going over to Chovy as well. It's nice for Cassante to get money and be very tanky early on, but if it went over to Pays, you'd feel a lot better about this.
The one saving grace I do think is that one of the issues that KT can have is as long as BDD isn't there, the ability to actually... might be in trouble here. There's Lantern
that Lantern, yeah.
To actually take down Chovy if he does get fed is a little rough, right? Like, I expect BDD, like you were saying, Wolf, to go for the Leandries here, because there is also a Gnar in this game. But even then, it will take him like a decent amount of items to actually be able to get through Cassante. And Ezreal, as strong as he is, can struggle when playing into very beefy opponents. But Pays, again, I think in most of these games hasn't really been able to pick up these like kills that have been happening around the map.
Talia Renekton is a terrifying duo. We saw BDD roaming up to the top side. He's trying to make a map play on the Talia. It's something he's so good at on many different picks. And you can see that immediately Doran's going to back off. He is going to respect it. And I like that. You know, they just need him not to die. Like, I think that naturally King will get a lead. But, yeah, he's going to respect that as now BDD is angling down to the bottom side. They do see Cuz here.
The wave's cleared.
And he's available.
Yeah, that's a fake Lantern, actually. Elise is not down here. Peanut is in the enemy jungle. And actually, KT are going to respect it.
Oh, they don't know.
BDD has no idea, but he is going to knock him in still. Handles it well, but the all-out is perfectly angled. BDD will be forced to flash away as they do trade flashes, but GENG will trade up slightly here in the mid lane.
Yeah, BDD not really aware, but still the reaction time from him is good, and he saves the play. And now they're just trying to push this with this cannon wave to grab an additional plate. But I think the way that KT is playing this, I mean, BDD is a player who's at 70% kill participation at 14. In this game, he's got 100% of it, of course, with only 1 kill going over. But he's been such a big impact for KT in the early game when he's roaming, when he's on these picks like Talia, the Twisted Fate. But in this comp, I think you could use it more defensively. You don't always have to be playing proactively and aggressively here. And KT have kind of run into a wall a few times here in this early game. And it's coming back to bite them potentially, because all you really need to do is scale up with that damage. Don't give Chovy a bunch of gold. He's got 2 kills already. Almost picked up a 3rd.
And after, I'm looking at Valdez. I'm like, Valdez, you know,
having some fun.
Because in a tri-cast, the play-by-play, especially in a game like this, I just wanted to give you
just give me a chance
some
to say something, you know?
Yeah, and Valdez like, no. And I'm like, okay, no.
Maybe it's going to be Hextech Soul again. What do you guys think?
I would be down.
You got a mountain, you got an ocean.
They got to go in here. You can't let them have this first turret blood.
Yeah, that's a ton of money if they pick this up. KT trying to do a lot here, also trying to hold this Drake. And I think if you focus on one of these 2 objectives, you can probably get it.
Yeah, and that's a big chunk on a Peanut already. But this is Elise. He's really trying to force this on a BDD. Gets the Zhonya's out. But now Peanut in a lot of trouble as King's just going to pick up the kill onto Peanut. And that is no smite now for the side of GENG. They're looking for a bit more. A stun on the rocks on the ground here for sure. But biggest thing is that, okay, it's a kill over to Keen. It's another Drake. And this time it's a Cloud Soul on the Rift. Even going to stop some backs here as KT take a nice little lead. And the Talia and the Renekton. What did I say? They come together. Toby is doing a great job about playing this. Nearly even able to get a nice chunk here on the Keen. But still a trade up for the side of KT.
And what we saw there is KT being able to catch Peanut off guard, right? Standing on vision, immediately gets shoved. And I think if he has his flash available at that point, if he flashes over the Drake pit, would have been fine, but tries to E out, even with the teleport being spotted. Very costly mistake there on Elise in particular. Going down in these early skirmishes means that your team is really going to struggle, as very straightforward, right? Like, caught on vision. This is still recoverable, but then immediately will go back here and gets caught, right? And there's just nothing that he can do there. The moment that Keen comes in, very nicely done. Great TP usage there from the Renekton. This is a level 11 Renekton with a pretty sizable lead and a Gore Drinker. Even if you do that skirmish well, it might be tough. And without Elise, can't do it.
By the way, he didn't even have Gore Drinker in that fight. He picks it up now. He was sitting on a lot of gold. He's able to go back, and now he's got it. And GENG are trying to force on the second Rift Herald, even with that spike.
Leandres is done here for BDD, and he has teleport. Hey. They really should be careful about forcing this GENG. It's not going to actually show, so he could be coming up. They don't know that. He's going to actually be staying bottom side here. And GENG just kind of give this up. BDD doesn't have to commit anything. And as long as KT don't give over kills, they're scaling. They're feeling great about their chances of playing this out in the late game. Yeah. And the other thing, too, is losing that Drake fight, Peanut dying there, the gold that you get is pretty significant, but having a 2 Drake buffer in this composition to buy time is really significant. The Cloud Soul is huge for GENG, but they're so far away from it.
Well, we'll see what's going to happen on this fight. GENG definitely considering it. You could see, I feel like GENG as a team, they expected to have more power in this early game with Cassante Elise, but unfortunately, yes, Chovy's picking up some kills here and there, and he's doing a great job. I feel like Chovy's kind of like the highlight player right now for GENG, but there's not really much to back it up, right? There's not like a lot of plays put together. A couple of them were matched by KT or respected. You saw that dive in the bottom side with the Rift Herald, immediately clapped back from the side of KT. So GENG never really got anything rolling with this Elise pick that they've had in the jungle, unfortunately.
And a lot of it also comes down to the fact that for GENG, like, actually finding an engage is very tough, right? Like, how do you actually start fights? It's a trap within a trap.
Who's trapping who?
Look, I'm not paying attention.
Oh, I was just clearing the wave. Oh, wait, there's a Sejuani, and he's got to flash away. And that is going to be the respect shown from KT. They say, okay, we'll get his flash. Nice chunk of damage done onto BDD by Doran, but now you don't have that flash for the next Drake fight.
And that's still huge, because as we saw in the previous fight, like, unless Chovy goes in really ham, or they hit a cocoon or hook, you're not starting a fight against Talia, against Ezreal, against Karma. So much mobility, even Renekton and Sedge can easily get out. And not having Flash on Gnar makes it even harder. I think that offensively, that Summoner is a really big deal for making sure that GENG can actually fight, because now, if you can find an all-in, I think a GENG comp at any point in the game can get it done. But you're going to get outranged, you're going to get outpoked, and losing summoners like that inside be very costly when it comes to this upcoming Soul Point fight in about a minute.
Yeah, they just didn't get the tempo they were really hoping for here in this game, and 2 kills on the Cassante isn't it. Unfortunately, it's quite significant if you're winning elsewhere on the map, but when you're not, it's a tough time. As Keen will not be able to all-in Chovy or anything like that right now alone, especially without vision. But this Elise pick into Sejuani is something we saw very early on in the season, and part of the reason why Elise was permabanned for so long was because Sejuani was the strongest pick, and Elise was not only great with prio lanes on the bottom side, but just so great at shutting down the Sejuani, which is why Peanut took first strike. I think he really thought he was going to have enough agency to follow Cuz around the map, get tons of money, and just harass him and take control over the map, instead of playing around defensively bottom side, just pushing Cuz out, but he has not been able to do so. Doran has a turret here, but we're going to see a dive set up, and he has no flash.
He's in a bit of trouble. Okay, teleport going to be committed to. Here it is, Chovy, so pretty scary. And they say, well, okay, all we have to do is rotate up here. We use some of our time to get your TP out. So
Doran TP'd bottom, so no summoners here. He lost his flash, he lost his teleport. Chovy's also teleported. KT, again, just like game 1, running circles around GENG when they have a lead. And now they're going to take out this mid-outer, and they're set up for Soul Point.
Cocoon misses as well. You do see that GENG trying to make a front here in the mid lane, but they're just going to lose their mid-tier 1 pretty much for the trade of the second Rift Herald. Now we do have the collapse. Cuz in a little bit of trouble, but he just flashes away. And they are going to get that flash out of the KT jungler now, right before this fight on the Dragon comes through.
They've got this choke point controlled.
Gonna make it hard, and this is why I was expecting something like an Ornn for Doran here, because it would solve so many of the issues that Genji is facing right now. But if they can force KT to run into them, might still be an opportunity here.
Look at this wall lineup. BDD's got it. He's going to take a big chunk on the backside. He does have Severum, so he's able to get some. There's a nice hook onto the front line. Going to bring Keen right into the team, but he lands with the Warrior. A big chunk comes in from the Cassante. Another hook is going to land, but look at aiming. Just going up. BDD flashing in, trying to get these hooks down. Immediate cleanse. As aiming says, this will be my team fight. They're chasing him down the bottom lane. Pace is not able to help out Peanut. As, by the way, PDD just passively riding the walls on over, and aiming even is going to live at the end of it here. Flashes away, but Pace will be taken down, and KT take a big fight in this game.
5,000 damage in a team fight at 21 minutes. 5,000 damage. If you survive the initial engage, you are just going to have a field day if you're aiming on this Ezreal. And this is just one of many team fights we're going to see later on that Gen.G really need to get that initial pickup on, or it's just not going to happen. The Gore Drinker is so valuable here for Keen.
And if Keen dies there, Gen.G can win this skirmish, but instead they throw all their resources into the big and hungry Crocodile, and as a result, they don't have them available here. It starts off great, right? You see this hook come through, but by the time they actually get on top of Keen, look how long he stays alive, right? And yes, Chovy's able to bring back people. Yes, the ultimate from Doran at the starter is okay, but that ult only works if you actually kill the Renekton. That's not the case, and this is an Ezreal's dream fight
He's
here.
at the shooting gallery. What is this?
And BDD also notably full health here.
We got another fight, guys. Oh, looks like it will be disconnected.
And the chase here is amazing because you have the Weaver's Wall, or rather the Taliyah to passively chase, as you mentioned. In the play-by-play, Hayes is not getting out of this, and aiming does take a bunch of damage, but gets out. And both BDD and aiming were so far away from all of the CC going straight into this Renekton. A Renekton not that tanky, but the Gore Drinker itself is going to let you live. I think you don't win when aiming chases them. He's going in at point-blank range. He's like, you have no CC. I'm actually walking on top of you as Ezreal. I don't care.
The one CC that he got hit by, he just immediately Captain Jack cleansed it. He's like, oh yeah, I know this is coming out. I know the timing of the hook, and he sees it out of the bush, doesn't care, immediately just continues to run into them. And that's the problem with mobile AD carries. If you get behind them, they will just hound you down. Everybody knows Zeri and hates Zeri Yumi and stuff like this because you can never get away from them if they get ahead in a team fight. But same thing for the Ezreal, sitting on 3 items. You're never going to get away from that guy, especially with the Karma. Now Jovi's caught out in the side lane. He has Smite, or rather Flash. He could tread all out over the wall, but he's just knocked away from it, and he's not able to get over the wall, but there is a Lantern. And a try there. No, this time aiming. Oh no, he gets caught on the top side of the map. It's now Gen.G. They're looking to take this fight down as another hook is going to land. Chovy on a killing spree, and Gen.G with one turn may be able to come back into this game.
I mean, this is amazing. Oh, the hook.
Boy, he's just dead as well. And now it's the shooting gallery for Gen.G.
And Gen.G, they make this happen off of just one mistake. Just one mistake from aiming. But KT really tripping on their shoelaces here. I mean, also BDD going in on that. Definitely shouldn't.
And now they get Baron.
That's going to be Nash. And that means at the very least that Gen.G should be able to contest for Cloud here. And that's the second time this series that aiming just crucially oversteps. The first game didn't matter, right? There wasn't any lasting fallout. This time around might not quite be the same case. And this is the second time in playoffs we see teams be like, oh, it's Cassante, we can kill him, and it leads to disaster, right? Think back to the play that Faker made. Feels very reminiscent of what we're watching here.
And this is all Delight, because Delight comes up here, he wants to save Chovy, he's got the Lantern, and when the Lantern is seen, that should be the end of the story here, but instead, we see a follow-up chase. He goes straight into this, and Delight's like, I can grab him. And he goes over here, grabs him with the hook, the follow-up is there, and they're all in on this, and then BDD walks straight in as well to Chovy, thinking, okay, he's low, I've got this, I'll be able to take him out. No, it's a Cassante. He's going to turn on you at point-blank range and kill you. He's calling out everyone's summoners here as they chase for the kills.
And new dress, pretty fun. Whoa. You know, you start winning a fight, you start building the snowball. Delight with the big wow in that one. And you just hit hook after hook. You get resetted cooldowns. You have like 2 seconds in between. It's basically got no cooldown, right? So you just change one into another. And, you know, I hate to say it, but even Talia with Leandries is still not enough damage into a fed Cassante. Took them basically 5 billion years to get him to half health.
And it's there that we also see how the Genji composition can work. If you go in the scrappy style of fights where it's 2v2, 3v3, you're going to be in trouble. You need to know where the flankers are, you need to know where the hooks are, and you need to make sure that aiming and BDD are safe. This fight, obviously, not even remotely the case. And now, bot lane turret has fallen. Pays actually getting a decent amount of gold off of both the kills and the Baron. If they can get mid as well, open up the map even more.
They want to push this turret here.
Very aggressive teleport from Doran. He's mini Gnar, just trying to keep the wave alive. Doesn't really amount to too much.
Yeah, they just want to keep this cannon alive because they want to get something out of this Baron buff. Maybe overextended now, they'll be fine, but the KT comp needs to just keep away from Genji. They don't need to hard force, they don't need to chase. And by default, their range advantage should be enough here. They're trying to force for Prio now to fight for this Drake because Genji need this so badly. It's Cloud Soul.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Peanut trying to just be a little bit more than a cocoon bot here as Cuz pretty tanky. Nice damage, nice shove comes out from BDD, but this tanky front line of Genji still doing a great job of eating it up. The Mega Gnar and the Cassante, you know, take a chunk of damage. Not really going to matter too much.
Mega Gnar going to time out.
This is going to be a bit of an issue here as the poke is coming in a little bit from aiming.
They're trying to flank here and maybe catch this backline, get Doran when he's mini Gnar.
Keen face checking it, doesn't realize that they're all there as a wall is coming in as well. Keen's behind enemy lines as it comes down to a smite, but it goes the way of Peanut. He is going to deny the console in this game. Bit of KT now on the run. They do not want to take a subsequent fight on this one. Pays flashing the wall as KT were already out of there.
Bit of a Hail Mary here from KT to force the 50-50 using the Ezreal and the W coming through and trying to burst down the Drake with Smite. But instead, they end up giving this over, and Keen's in a bad spot, has to get out, and feels like KT really just aren't playing to their win conditions here in this composition.
I think into the Baron, it is really hard to actually be able to get the fights, and Keen oversteps a little bit. But with the trade of pace, it's a little bit.
With a W attempt, but it's just missed time.
Yeah, it's like 300 health as well, so it really was just a bit of an unfortunate smite there. But with pace going for this flash, I actually think the trade isn't that bad for KT, because it does mean that yes, there's still a flash available for base, so he's not completely without protection. But if Keen or BDD can now get an angle on a W, or Keen can get onto Pace at all, there is actually opportunity to kill this Aphelios, and I think with that flash, that's a lot harder. And it's just a first individual Drake. But what I'm more worried about with you, Wolf, is that KT seemingly kind of losing their cool here.
Yeah, it's just not calm and collected play, and it was until aiming made that one error on the top side when they're trying to collapse onto Chovy. And then since then, we've just seen desperation out of them when it hasn't been required. Shielding pretty strong.
I love this meta.
And so he could just not care and not react at all. We are in a period where it's 80 seconds till the Baron goes up, so KT just trying to get some prio here in mid. And they don't have any setup vision on Baron at all. So Genji get to dictate the pace of how this is going to go. It's a very strong Aphelios now. And with the front line he has, with Gnar set up here, this time Doran's going to have flash, right? I mean, a lot of these fights, Doran has been down summoners. Will have the ability to dictate the pace of it. If KT just walk head first into this Genji comp, then it's going to be a bad time. I think you really have to play it slow because, yeah, Cassante's extremely tanky. You've got Void Staff on this Talia. Just repeatedly use Leandri's burn to win the fight for you with some Ezreal Qs.
He's just going to nearly take out the turret. And he's got a lantern, so he's actually totally fine. But he's got to be careful, you know, he's taking big risks here just for the mid-tier 1. It is nice, but 30 minutes into the game...
He doesn't have flash.
Yeah.
He's like, really?
He really trusts his support, you know?
He does. And one highlight as well, Peanut, particularly with First Strike and Void Step, is effectively dealing true damage here, right? So anyone but Cuz that gets hit by Peanut, like with the magic penetration on his Mythic, combined with the fact that he went Sword Pan Boots, First Strike, and Void Staff, he's going to pop them. And even though his scoreline might not look too impressive, I think that Peanut actually is something that KT need to deal with, and it's again up to BDD and aiming to stay away from the spider.
Yeah, just poke. Just sit back,
let Cuz scoop it up, okay? He can deal with it.
Like, there are ways to get into the backline and threaten these champions, and there are ways to actually follow up. Like, if you get a Talia grab onto Chovy, like, the reaction is, I want to go in, I want to blow this champion up, but you actually just really need to stay away. Don't ever engage on that Cassante.
GENG here with the level advantage, actually. It was pretty interesting to see. Chovy ahead of BDD. We got Pays level 16, same as both the KT solo lanes. It's not very common, but he's been left alone to farm for quite a bit. And this Aphelios is nearing his fourth item, I should say, as is aiming. It's going to be pretty interesting to see which one of these 80 carries, which, you know, in our narrative points, definitely a couple of these guys we really need to take a close look at and take the microscope at in the high pressure series. I want to see which one is really going to step up to the plate here in a game 3 that's going to turn the series in one team's favor.
The gold lead is somewhat misleading because it makes it look like GENG is massively ahead, but one wrong team fight is so much extra money going over to KT with the turrets that are standing on the map, and it's not about the goal, it's about the team fighting composition that GENG is not favored with. But there are ways, if you pick up a single target, where you absolutely crush it. So it's just going to come down to who's better on the day, like you say, who's better in this third game, aiming or Pays. Is BDD going to get the poke done?
Duskblade finished for aiming. Going to be looking for some resets in these fights. We'll get a little assassin-y here in this game. Full item choice here in this game. As there's a Cocoon and Lehens. There he is. You were just talking about it, the true damage, and immediately the support of KT is just gone. As now all out over the wall. Cuz in a little bit of a rough spot here. Keen has to go into the Dominus. And KT, they will kite back, but they're down a member. Might need to give up another Drake.
And it's Peanut coming out there from the fog, taking down Lance with Flash. And yes, again, it's just a Drake, but it's these type of picks, I think, that really take the wind out of KT's sails as they start to fall further and further behind. Don't really have the opportunity to try and go for a Baron player unless they really want to try and force GENG to make some big mistakes here.
Yeah, and I think if they had maybe rushed straight to it as soon as Lehens died, GENG might not have been able to do the Drake. You could have played that game where you kite back and then you poke as GENG tries to approach, but you kind of didn't commit to either. You didn't go to the Drake straight away, you didn't go to Baron, and you've got the Scuttle, but they go over the wall, and now you don't have vision. You've got a false sense of security here. You have no idea.
And the damage is huge if Pays is in that pit, and he is. Take a look at this. 6,000 health, 5,000. Cuz is trying to get in, but there's a massive wall of tanks in front of him. Nobody can get in from the side of KT. As they want to try to take the fight afterwards, Seismic Shove is there on the Pays. But GENG just kiting it back. There's the first hook. They're allowing Pays to get that damage down as a re-engage looking to come in here from the side of KT, and GENG just going to flash out and take their objective with them.
And these, you know, the flash used here from Chovy, not that significant. He's Cassante, and he's getting out of here absolutely worth it. KT once again falling by the wayside in terms of controlling these mid to late game Drake versus Baron scenarios. We're slow to react, thought a Scuttle alone would be enough, but GENG can go over the wall. They come up way too late, and there's nothing they can do. They're too late to the party, and their comp takes way too long to do damage to actually catch GENG. They're not a comp that can just straight up Weaver's Wall. It's not that type of Talia comp where you can just Weaver's Wall, catch for the punish.
And going back to display with Shetsudo in motion, it's just as easy as that, right? Walk a little bit too close to the brush, and if you get hit by the Cocoon, even Elise alone was almost enough damage. And what Chovy does here, even though they don't kill Cuz, is force another ult. As you were pointing out, the Dominus getting used to try and keep the jungler safe. That's fine, but that's a big team fight ultimate gun. And then as you pointed out, Wolf, the Scuttle, really, it's a trap. It's actually a false. I think if there's no vision on that Nash, they respond like 2 seconds quicker, and then maybe they don't get it, but maybe you can get an engagement, maybe you can poke them down, you can get the fight going. Not the case.
Here we go again with the TPs trying to take out these mid turrets. This time makes a little bit more sense. Chovy gonna open this up for his team as they are pushing mid and bot at this moment in time. And meanwhile, Doran gonna get the combo onto BDD. He's gonna go down immediately. As trying to turn it on to Pays, but it's just desperation. Cuz has to flash away. GENG are looking to push into this base.
This is not looking great here for KT. They may just simply get pushed out of this game. They don't have hard engage. They tried to set up for a potential shove there with BDD. He's punished. The flank is shut down.
Oh, now they're getting on to aiming as he climbs to his death. Hayes runs right in, picks up the double kill, and gets a triple kill. This game is over. GENG 10,000 ahead as they will push in with the Baron buff and try to take down the Nexus.
And that's going to be it. GENG going to take the 2-1 lead here. KT, like GENG in game 1, unable to get the win on blue side. Looks like it started off well when Aiming got those couple of kills. Everything was looking peachy, but it's not enough.
And that's it. The Nexus goes down. GENG take the lead. The big turning point in this series.
This is a team, KT Rolster, that arguably has the more veteran players. This is a team that has players who have been around and seen a lot. And I think we are witnessing a bit of a choke here in this best of 5, just not playing to the best win, or not playing to their composition's win conditions, playing over aggressive, turning a lead into thinking that they have enough control to do almost anything they like. And GENG is a team that will punish you. KT didn't show the proper respect, and now match point is against them. The closest this team has been to a finals in 5 years, and now it may just all slip away.
Big there as well, the individual performance coming through from Delight after a really rough first game, most notably unable as I think that the Fresh there a big difference maker, the Chovy another one, right? It's that topside play that really turned this entire game on its head. And Peanut, as mentioned, still able to do a ton of damage. And I'm going to start to wonder, is it not time that we bring pace off of Aphelios? Because very clearly, I think the way he plays aggressively, enabled by a Fresh here as well, is really tough for KT to deal with. This doesn't look like a player that's playing his first Stadium best of 5.
It's
all too aggressive.
Yeah, I mean, like I said,
if anything, yeah.
Paze is a player who just will not get nervous. He just won't. Well, he's proven it already over the course of a season. But now BDD on another loss on Talia here, one of his most iconic champions, Aiming, taking his first loss on Ezreal this season. A bunch of first losses here for KT Rolster. The comfort just isn't coming together.
GENG holds strong, bringing in a very nice little concoction here in the draft. They play it out very calm, cool, collected. They wait for KT to make mistakes, and then they pounce like a tiger. GENG ahead 2-1 in the series. We will take a break and have the space. We'll be right back.
살렸어. 아, 나 플래시를 한번 보고 싶은데. 아, 네, 맞네. 아, 네. 야, 이제. 하나만. 가자. 야, 고치 맞췄어. 야, 이게 슬래시야. 깔았어. 나이스, 얘들아. 한동이 나이스. 캐리. 나이스.
에 간판 잘하자.
파이팅! 오면 내가 볼게 이거. 나이스 나이스.
아 이거 그 산테가 킬을 다 먹어가지고.
아 잡자. W 쏘는데 킬에 들어오더라고.
아 이거 내가 킬을 좀 먹었으면 좀 됐는데. 아 이거 내 카르마 높을 때 카르마 노렸어야 돼.
나이스.
아 나이스요.
GENG, game number 4, back to your regularly scheduled programming. What an impressive game coming through here from KT.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Jump Shield space. We're here for the preparations for game number 4, but first, we want to break down game number 3. We'll start in the draft, and gentlemen, I'm not going to lie, I feel uninspired by the draft that we saw here.
Yeah, there were some interesting things coming out, like the Ezreal Karma into the Aphelios, obviously a bit of a rough lane for him, and they do outrange, but like the Talia, not a big fan. 0-10 now, and a 10 loss streak, so not too ideal.
Yeah, I mean today I think it's more so I think KT having problem because they lost with the TF at the second game, which was unlosable, and also Ezreal Karma was unbeatable as well. But the thing is, today they lost both of it.
Yeah, and it all kind of started with Lehens overextending there a little bit in the enemy jungle. Things kind of fell downward, but they did have some team fighting that brought them back into the game. But unfortunately, it got to a point where pace was just way too big in this one. And the Aphelios, like, they illustrated it many times on the desk, but I want to reiterate it. This guy looks like he's unflappable.
And he looks so good in the Aphelios, and particularly if you're into a champion like Ezreal, Ezreal wants to layer Qs on the enemy team, get them a bit lower before he can play more aggressive. You can't do that against Felios because he's a bruiser and he just sustains up. It's like, okay, you land a Q, he heals up, land a Q, he heals up. He never gets low enough where Ezreal can challenge him once he gets to the later stages. So it's kind of like Ezreal can't make a mistake. If you mess up in one team fight, the game just falls out of control.
Yeah, I mean, you also need to know this guy is a first-time big stage.
Yeah, right.
Crazy.
It's his first Stadium Best of 5, and let's jump into our first highlight here as well, as this started off fantastic for KT.
Yeah, this was honestly a pretty phenomenal fight for KT. It felt like they had the slow approach. FaZe is getting poked out here. This is before he has like the Bloodthirster. And it looks like KT get the momentum. You can see they attempt a kill onto Keen, but he still gets the damage off in the combo. And then Aiming has this phenomenal cleanse here.
Yeah, I mean, this is like really good Captain Jack cleanse. That's what.
Oh, yeah.
But the thing is, like, you also need to, like, the key is, like, when the team fight is actually really controlled, like, KT do have a strength from the pick and ban. Like, the Ezreal Karma is, like, basically untouchable. The thing is, like, when the fight, it gets messy. We'll see right here.
Yeah, and the Chovy bait.
Yeah, I mean, he's so tanky, he buys so much time, and the Lantern for the Thresh comes in absolutely clutch here. But also, we just saw Aiming burn both summoners. This is about 3 minutes later. No summoners, Ezreal just gets one shot.
Pop. I mean, that's the thing, like, from the KT, like, the Ezreal Karma has to be untouchable. It's not even, like, the difficulty is not, you know, it's not hard. But the thing is, like, KT, once they mess up, this is the thing, like, ooh, the threshing came in clutch, and then they got the Baron and the AD carry. The pace got huge. You can't really do anything. It basically, Israel was untouchable, but the thing is, the pace become untouchable.
Yeah, Paze was just, he was popping off. I think Delight also played a huge part in that. His Thresh absolutely amazing. Hook after hook after hook. He was just incredible.
They had a chance to ban the Thresh, right? On the ban to the second rotation, they banned Nautilus and Tristana. I kind of get that Tristana, it's a bit hard for the Talia to deal with, but I feel like the Thresh was more important than the Nautilus, and especially how good it is with the Felios.
Yeah, and Huni, let's go through our second highlight here. This was kind of KT's last stand, their last chance, their fight for the soul here, and it just did not go their way, and it felt like they were flustered, right? This was after they lost the Baron based on that last play.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, you know, it makes sense that from KT to do this, because it's like KT had a soul point, which is like, they just want to go for the soul point. They just want to go for the smite battle, which is like, it's completely understand. That's why the game kind of loop around, like making sure, like, you know, like pressuring, be able to pressure like from behind. But the thing is, like, this was, you know, like Genji was like, they were big bold, like they just go for it. Like, and then Peanut may be able to get the Drake, that's a huge.
The thing is, I feel like the Cloud Soul wouldn't necessarily give that much power in return, but even if it did, it's like Paze is just so hard to deal with. They're struggling to approach him with the cleanse. Like, your primary engage is the Sejuani, and they have cleanse, and he has the Bloodthirster shield. It's just so hard to deal with.
Yeah, they didn't manage to find the flank angle, and therefore they didn't manage to find the game. But now it is time for the POG. We'll see who manages to pick it up. I know where our votes went. They went to this guy, 0, 3, and 9, but at the end of the game, hitting hook after hook after hook. And at this stage, I was thinking, it's Chovy POG, but from this point on, Delight was just doing everything.
Well, I mean, I'll say, it's just game changer. That's I think the exact word that I want to give it to him. Like, this guy was hooking like everyone and the most important person, and he changed the flow of the map.
Yeah, 4 hooks in a row in that fight. And this was the fight that turned the game, that came of him catching Aiming, and from then on it was just so consistent in these fights. This play at the end as well, flashes in for the flay, ends up catching Lehens here as well. Phenomenal confidence for one of the least experienced players in this series.
Yeah, he was absolutely incredible. So Delight, a well-deserved POG here. And with this, we move to match point. Everyone on the right-hand side of the votes picking Delight. Bit of a media hog, to be perfectly honest. Amazing stuff there. So, really nicely done. Match point for Genji, and we'll see whether KT can bounce back as we throw it back to the casters for game number 4.
Thank you, Atlas, Ox, and Huni once again for that wonderful breakdown as we are jumping into game number 4 right away. And we've talked a lot about the mental battle. We've talked a lot about some of the narrative points with some of these players, of course. The GENG really feeling like they're in control of the series now. And I think that KT, either they get right back on the horse or this one is flying right out the window.
And what I would love to see, as I mentioned, I think you need to stop giving Paze Aphelios, because Paze, as good as I think he's been, also hasn't really been tested. Neither AD carry is getting Zeri. That's a given. But maybe you try and swap it up, try and swap out any of the other bands, and just make sure that he is going to be put on something that isn't very Aphelios or Zeri, because that's when he's looked rough. Think back to his Lucian games, where he was actually really struggling. If he has to be aggressive in lane, I think the team is really going to struggle, and allowing him to still play not just any hyper carry, which again, I think GENG plays around hyper carries extremely well, testament to their form last summer, but particularly one that he used to play all the time in Challengers.
I think for me, the last game draft we saw from KT was something they didn't necessarily want to show in this series. I think they maybe wanted to beat GENG tonight and save the Ezreal pick for the T1 series tomorrow. If they made it through, they pulled it out early. They played the early game extremely well. It's not about drafting to me for KT Rolster. Rather, it's about the mental fortitude that they need to show here, and they need to, after making one mistake, not double down on mistakes and actually stay calm, because Delight's a new player, right? And he had a shaky game 1. Game 2's fine. Game 3, phenomenal, right? Paze, he's definitely not nervous. KT, on the other hand, are trying to make clutch plays, but kind of stumbling over themselves a lot of the time and trying to force things that don't suit their win rate, or their win condition, excuse me. And I want to see KT just do a standard draft here, and if they get a lead, hold on to it and play around those conditions, rather than trying to force advantages and trying to pull more gold out of thin air, because in that last game they certainly didn't have to. And maybe if there's a draft as GENG that you've been preparing, that you've been hiding, maybe this is the time to pull the kill switch and pull it out and take the series 3-1, show less games, and move on. Like, maybe if you're hiding something, this could be the moment on red side for GENG to pull it out, and KT need to be wary of that.
Well, it's got to be both teams, right? Because KT are on the ropes, so either you pull it out now or we never get to see it. So, could say it for both sides here as we hop onto the draft for game number 4. I almost said 2. We are way beyond that, Valdez, as Ahri going to be the first ban here.
And that signifies that we're not going to see any major switch. I love that K'Sante ban for very obvious reasons. It was a huge factor in the previous game, and was one of the big reasons why GENG was able to play so well around Chovy with incredible impact. And even though we did suspect very strongly we'll go mid, and there we go. And I really like this adaptation. Now the main question is, the other thing that we've seen GENG on is the Xayah and Rakan. So I would expect, if it isn't banned away, at the very least a Rakan here. I expect Sejuani or Varus to be the takeaway here. But leaving Varus open and giving that over to KT is a really big risk, and GENG would need a very specific plan if they want to do that. And they won against Sejuani in the last game as well. But it's going to be Secho Varus open for the first time here.
Yeah, and they may look to trade these picks, but you give the Varus over, it's not going to be an easy lane for the Xayah Rakan. That makes you wonder if GENG have another plan. We have seen Caitlyn into the Varus. We've seen a lot of teams play Jinx into the Varus too. And this is what I was talking about, is GENG going into a third game like this where you actually have match point. Keep KT guessing, do something puzzling, because now KT have to wonder, if we lock in Varus, is it going to be that Caitlyn lane? Do they have a good answer? They'll take away the buy here instead, so keeping it hidden. They're going to make GENG be the ones to pull the trigger and say, are you going to be playing the prio bottom lane into us, or are you going to go ahead and lock in the Xayah? We get to dictate now on blue side because we just picked a flexible jungle.
Yeah, that's essentially the way it goes, right? Those flexible jungles for first pick on blue side. You see it all the time with Lee Sin, obviously Sejuani. And GENG say, Xayah Rakan, what have you got? What is your response now?
I'd love to see a Renata lane, to be honest.
Varus Renata does seem to be the answer here. Allows you to really bully the early game. Try and put this bot lane behind. The one thing that I do think you're a little scared about if you're KT is that the Maokai is open, and I think Peanut, with Maokai in particular, has been doing a great job. This is a lot more aggressive. I think the benefit of this is you have a way to extra way to force a Feather Storm, meaning that Paze won't have as much safety. If it's just Vi, I think the Vi is going to really struggle. But if you add a Corruption, right? If you add a Nautilus ultimate, it becomes a lot harder to actually hold onto that cooldown. Does Peanut actually want to go here for the Maokai, or is it going to be the Wukong, something that Wukong Rakan extremely strong.
I think Wukong is the right call.
It's going to be it.
He's going to lock it in. It's so great
Wait, I'm
defensively,
back,
but it
I'm
offers
back.
you aggression as well.
Okay,
the
just
early
hook up.
game is going to be
Oh
somewhat
my
of a problem.
god, what
Like, there's
happened?
certainly going to be a weak point here where Varus can push the lane with Nautilus, and then you have a bit of a trough there where Wukong pre-6 isn't going to be able to make an impact. So Genji have a lot of team fight power later on. I think what KT need to do now is identify that this is going to be a problem later on. Let's try to get some lane prio here for our solo lanes. Problematically, they're on blue side here, so they won't have counter pick. But something safe here, like a Jace, for example, for Keen. I would love to see synergize with the Varus. We'll see if Genji leave it up.
Definitely could be something they're looking at here. What are going to be the bans for KT? Do they want to target Chovy more, or maybe try to give Keen the ultimate win in the top side? They will say no LeBlanc to start.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they end up banning away 2 mid laners here as well and trying to force Genji's hand a little bit. The LeBlanc is one of the safest, particularly if you do ban away the Lissandra in case Genji did want to do that. Expect that with the LeBlanc ban that's not going to be the case, but seen a lot of R3 or R4, the cannon actually. A lot of R4 LeBlancs. Ahri obviously would be great if she wasn't already taken away at the beginning. We do know that Chovy really likes to pick. The cannon here might be a hint toward just R4 Gnar, something that is not exciting, but we've seen about 50 million times here from Genji.
Silas ban. Interesting here.
Let's
make the
Malphite.
Yeah.
Gnar, yeah.
It says, okay, if you're going to pick up the Malphite here, we have an answer. I actually love just getting this Lissandra here because you can set up dive with Wukong. It's not going to be an easy way to set up early game picks. But now KT have to choose, do we want to play Malphite into a Xayah? Or do we want to play Jace? And I thought maybe we'd even see a Jace instead of the cannon ban here from Genji because it just seems so obvious. You can play double lethality, even though it's not how they wanted to set up this lane.
Might be time.
Gasps from the crowd.
Might be time to pull out TF again. Well, he's going to give it another shot in this series, and we will have a blind Jax. Keen will not go down in this series without at least playing one game of Jax.
Well, you only get one ultimate as pays in this game, and there are a lot of ways to kill him. There's a lot of CC here. But really doubling down on this composition, I think for KT, a greedy choice in a best of 5 like this, and the Gragas pick now just feels so safe into the Jax. We've seen Doran play this many a time. You just body slam the Jax away so he can't counter-strike you. You sit in the lane, you scale up, and now Genji have a great 5v5 comp in the late game. KT are really going to need to get a tempo advantage here.
Yeah, when it comes to 5v5, Genji reigns supreme. The upside for KT and a really big adaptation from their previous draft that they went for, even though it is a risk with blinding the Jax, is that the TF comp with Malphite was a bust. Keen didn't have side lane pressure, and there wasn't enough damage available because the combination wasn't able to get ahead. So Malphite ults and TF ults and nothing really happens. This time around, if Keen ever gets ahead, BDD is going to make it completely impossible to deal with. We also know how good Keen is at specifically this Jax. So I like the KT comp a lot more, but I do think that they've been kind of stumbling in the last 2 games. And with a composition like this, you need to make sure that your side lane play is 100% on point. Because if you just try to 5v5, make it messy, might be in deep trouble.
I think Doran really needs to hold strong in this one. This is a one where Doran, if you mess it up, if you body slam at the wrong timing, Keen can crush you in this lane. It's very difficult to do normally, but it's Keen. If he gets a massive lead, the side lane threat just will not be answered.
May just come down to a little bit of individual prowess from some of the solo laners of KT, and perhaps just a little bit more stability, a little bit less desperation from KT from what we saw in that last one. But Genji, I like the way you put it, just kind of hold on, wait for the 5v5s. Maybe you get pace to carry on the Xayah once again, and you're just chilling, you're just waiting, trying not to get caught out in these side waves. They've got a great composition for exactly that, so we'll see if they can do it here as we hop onto the Rift for game number 4 of the lower bracket finals.
KT 하나, 둘, 셋. 겐지 하나, 둘, 셋.
And maybe it's all just part of the KT Rolster booster.
Could very well be the case. Wouldn't surprise me one bit. Because, you know, after game one, everyone's like, okay, KT looking really good. And they're like, oh, wait, I don't know about that. Let's calm down a little bit.
Genji are pretty good. Okay, let's hold the phone on the excitement, you know?
Yeah. KT losing these 2 in a row means that they no longer have their advantage, too, of having the final game blue side advantage that we were talking about after they won on red side in game 1. Genji winning twice in a row means that they've earned that back. It will be a Chemtech Drake to start in this one, so it does feel like we're on our way to a banger game here, regardless of the result.
Banger!
And I like that KT are not afraid to double down but make those adjustments Chronicler was talking about with the Jax here. And it's a lot of faith and trust that the coaching staff have actually given to these solo laners again, despite what was a pretty disastrous mid-game. The last time, it was aiming's error, really, that led to that. Some mistakes from BDD and Keen where they overforced fights, too, once they lost control of the game. But this has all been done by Supreme, by the way, because Hirai has been ill for a really long time. And I think this is a really big kind of coming to success story for Supreme this season because he's been put at the helm as Hook goes in level 1.
Ignite put in onto Lens. He's going to have to flash, and he might just die in the 2v2 already in game number 4. As Taming desperate to trade back, but that's already a kill before 2 minutes.
And that's a disaster, right? You pick the Varus Nautilus lane to have pressure, to make sure that you can get the early prior, you can get the early presence, and you give up first blood to Xayah.
And this is not the way that you want to be playing your level 1 as well. You want to use the poke and try to hit Comet poke, and then when you hit level 2, you can do a little bit more, but you never really want to be clashing into Genji's lane like this. It's just not the way that it's supposed to be played. You took Comet for a reason, and you're just opting into this. As Keen is going to hit that Counter-Strike. Not going to be anything of it, but this is pretty disastrous already here at level 1.
And Pace gets his kill as BDD.
A little play here in mid lane, but BDD is under the turret. But just a little play, you hit BDD with the red buff, you get a nice amount of burst damage, you give Chovy some bit of momentum in the lane, perhaps.
Yeah, very nicely done. I would ask Doran for all Genji fans, you don't have to play aggressive in this lane. Your bot lane gets a kill at level 1.
Okay. They're just hooking into a level 1. Pace is just calling this out, man. He's hyped.
And it makes sense as well, right? Like, in a short trade, you have a great chance. I think even at level 1, you have the opportunity to out-trade the Xayah and the Rakan, but like, Pace, once he has max lethal tempo stacks, you're losing. Like, you're not going to be able to win it, and we saw it come through there as well. Right from the get-go, gets an early kill, goes back and buys a call. Now, do note that aiming didn't have to back, right? And has been able to build up a decent CS. He will be a little bit less once this wave gets cleared out, but still not going to be in the worst of spots. But it also means that Pace can play so much more laid back, knowing that his Gilfor's call spike is still going to be super huge here.
Yeah, hold the wave here a little bit. Making sure they get the free safe farm. And TP is used for BDD. In trade with Chovy. Chovy got that small advantage there with Peanut, but it doesn't end up leading to anything. BDD also not having to flash. The top side of the map here is, we haven't taken a close look at it, but Doran, outside of getting caught by Counter-Strike once, has pretty much neutralized this, but now causes coming up here.
Timing of the skank. Look, the wave is pushing into Keen. He's low. Doran's looking for aggressive trades. He's positioning aggressively. He is Gragas. Let's see if he can get out of this one, but the Counter-Strike is not flash. Looks to flash after, and it will be enough. Doran gets away safely.
It's
like he held the activation of Counter-Strike expecting to flash follow. Doran didn't flash, I think he used it early. Doran's able to get out. Still, flash taken away.
Flash being gone is big, means that BDD might have an opportunity, but with how the state of the game is right now, I think BDD was looking to ult towards bot side, and this means that there might be an opportunity if Doran oversteps down the line, but Doran, when he sees Keen walking towards him with that helper, I was like, okay, this is fishy. I'm not trusting this one, and we'll be able to stay alive here. But does have to give up an early summoner, but this is an early Drake coming through for Genji yet again, and we do know that this soul probably going to be a pretty decent one here. Also looking good.
Yeah, and this is, you know, a Varus lane that's given up early Drake.
This
doesn't feel great. We could have seen the Varus Renata, for example, for a harder push. It's just not Lehenz's playstyle. He likes to roam. And if you're able to, with Nautilus Varus, get a nice early lead, as you're expected to do, then Aiming could just sit down here and farm, and Lehenz can make impacts, but now he can't.
BDD
level 6
coming in as the CC chain is there, but BDD, he is tanky enough to just walk it out. He's got a Null Magic Mantle and a Ruby Crystal, which just going to keep him alive, has the Corrupting Pot ticking. So pretty much just walks it off.
What kind of items are those?
For an opportunity here.
You buy Everfrost?
Not going to commit.
And if level 6 is available there, maybe Peanut can get something going, but nicely done by BDD as well, even without having any defensive sums, just goes, doesn't use his flash, not too bothered here, and stays alive, but it does mean that this TF, until he goes back, probably can't go for a cross-map play, so even though the ganks aren't successful, they're still keeping BDD kind of on the back foot here, which gives Genji a little bit more time.
Yeah, lots of extra external pressure put into this mid lane at no real cost. Now Doran significantly behind here in the lane. Peanut's actually shadowing up here. And this is part of what you could do as Jax, especially when you know the enemy jungler is going to be very low impact pre-6. And Doran, you know, he's down on CS here, down on a flash, but if he lives long enough to get that flash back, should be totally fine. Very close start here in this early game, and I think that aiming in Lehen's it's so critical. You pointed out earlier, Chronicler, the fact that aiming lives, it could stay in this lane and maintain that CS means that it's not a lost cause down here. And the recovery has been quite nice so far here for KT on the bottom side of the map.
Jonas Strong, ruthless in his zoom-ins, just a little bit of a aggressive auto from Pays, loses him one ranged minion when he gets zoomed in on. That is the way it goes here at the LCK. No mistakes.
Not allowed.
Doran's just having a good time. Fall a little bit behind, but
okay, here's the
like this.
Destiny Gate angle.
And Lehen's is here too. And, well, there's a little bit of vision up there on the top side. Here comes Delight and Peanut.
I think the angle was maybe if Chovy panics here too and claws in, you just ult on him and gold card him. Just going to walk over though. And unfortunately this won't lead to anything.
2 free control wards.
You get a red buff. It's KT, you know, that's nice.
Whoa, nice.
Yeah.
Not nothing, I guess, but a small something.
Oh yeah, they also gave the control ward, so maybe it is just nothing. Not a whole lot. And in general, game has been pretty laid back after what was a very explosive early game here. And for KT, I think they still have plenty of time. Even as I've mentioned before, I think we've seen KT take these side lane 1-for-1 compositions, and even if they don't snowball, their mid and late game picks have been amazing. As
Chovy on the road. Doran low on mana, so maybe Keen underestimating him here, but with Alessandra, could lead to a lot more. He's got enough for the cask, and now he's under the turret. That's going to be a kill. Give it on over to Chovy. Fantastic timing on the roam up to the top side.
And it's almost a foregone conclusion you feel when you have your Vi on the top side here on Herald. Okay, ult goes through. Just going to be a Q that follows up. But when you have the Herald controlled, you're like, well, Chovy's not going to come up here. I have top prio. That would be silly to actually think he could do that. But if the cask is good, you can actually get that kill. And they misjudging the mana, as you mentioned. This is huge for Genji. An additional set of gold being picked up, this time for Chovy. And they would get the Herald here, but at a high cost.
Peanut rather able to catch the wave as well. And I think we're starting to see that ultimate on bot side from aiming as well. That's a big cooldown gone. It means that you can't chain it together with a Nautilus ultimate to try and kill someone once it becomes available. Now, is a lethality Varus, so the cooldown on his ultimate and his abilities in general not going to be the end of the road, particularly once he does pick up his core fields. But still, not having anything but a small CS lead when you're playing into a call and a kill up Xayah. Not really why you're trying to go for the Varus. Will, of course, still have a lot of impact with the lockdown that the rest of the team provides.
Yeah, and this is the play here. Keen realizes, okay, this is sus, but he gets cast perfectly right into the turret. Nothing he can do. Does a bit of damage back and does get the stun off here, but Doran was always going to be safe. Pretty Elementary just misjudging there, and they're still able to secure the Herald, but just didn't see that one coming.
Yeah, it's really good timing from Chovy. I mean, he's playing up against, say, TF, right? So you would expect BDD to be looking for the angles, to getting the side lane pressure and stuff like that, but Chovy's actually the first one to get the roam off and affect one of those side lanes. So already good start here for Genji. We do have Infernal Drake on the way. And yes, Genji did pick up that first one, but the second one going to be pretty huge for either side.
Yeah, I see a group up here faster for KT right now, but not actually starting this off, wanting to drop Herald first and look for a turn. Vision here on the scuttle for GENG is actually pretty significant. And KT just gonna walk out away, not gonna even try to pick up gold here for BDD on this one, and just gonna straight up give the Drake. And KT playing a little bit nervous here.
Yeah, I think we also see like Aiming has a decent amount of gold in his pocket. Actually, now is his Ghost Blade available. And Backtimer's not quite looking too hot there. Maybe they can get something on the backup here, right? But I think that GENG have more than enough time, so they're just going to get second Drake, early Infernal, and when your TF and Varus comp isn't able to start stacking early Drakes, going to be a little bit worried, but fortunately for any KT fan, you look to the top left, you see the Ocean Soul, not a slouch by any means. For side laning in particular, I think it can be nice, but if this is a Mountain, or Axe stack again, you're gonna feel much worse.
What feels worse to me, watching this from a KT perspective, is not that they lost 2 Drakes in a row, but that they just didn't make any proactive play whatsoever and just let it happen, and seem to be playing nervous, seem to be not actually focused on what they could have done, I think, potentially in this team fight with their composition. And BDD walked away from Herald Gold, for example. You start to wonder, is that all we need to know?
All right, here we go. First play from the TF. They get on in. They have the vision, and Peanut on the flash. One auto finally comes through. A little bit rough on that one, but Cuz will pick up the kill as a nice setup play in the enemy jungle does come through.
Sid fears somewhat allayed.
Perfect, yeah. That's exactly what you need to see. Using the Destiny Gate there, take down Peanut. Something we haven't even talked about yet, but you see Peanut also trying to hold his W to maybe make sure that he is able to hold it until the Destiny runs out, but not even remotely going to be the case. Nicely done there by Cousin BDD. These are the type of picks that they're going to have to keep looking for. And getting Cuz fed. Great start to that.
In terms of the damage output here in this composition, there's a lot of pressure on Pace. So watch this once again. He does no vision. The second he's caught here, it's a really easy follow-up. There's no way Chobi can get here fast enough, unfortunately. Mita with a bizarre flash there looking for the knock-up. Probably could have just saved that one. And a bit of a weird one. Does end up dying, but now he's not going to have flash for the next team fight. We're still a ways away from that, but...
Oh, he's there again.
He's getting baited again. Toby in position again to get a gank on the top lane. And this time the kill goes over to Doran. And they are just owning that side lane here. GENG getting very ahead in that top side of the map.
I mean, this Jax is no longer really a threat. It is not going to be the side lane win condition that you were hoping for if you're KT to get to the late game and threaten these fights where you can 1-3-1 with the Twisted Fate. And like I was saying before, so much of the pressure is on Aiming this game because he's really the only long-term late game damage here. He didn't go for lethal tempo as well, so he's just got some poke here with this lethality setup. But you've got serious damage problems now as KT, and you're losing control of the map very quickly. And I don't think they're going to be threatening that mid-turret anytime soon. The fact that they were able to kill that or charge into that with the Herald is pretty insignificant if you don't have any follow-up to it. This is just, again, a bait from Doran.
Yeah, and what's really key here, I think, is that I still think the KT composition, like even in mid to late game, as soon as someone's out of position, you have your lethality various raining down arrows. As long as someone is stationary, you can take him down. But it's much more important, like you're down match points, right? Like you have a lot of comfort that you lost on in game 2. Then you have more comfort that you lose on in game 3. And then in a game like this, Keen not being able to get any leads on his Jax, I think can really throw you off. And it's going to be up to KT to show that they can actually withstand that pressure, that they can still look for these proactive plays, because if Doran just gets to neutralize Keen in the side lane and it comes down to 5v5s, I don't see KT winning this game.
I don't see it either if that continues to happen. It's very difficult to dive this Nautilus and Twisted Fate, but GENG going to put the pressure on here. Peanut still no flash. Instead of heavily committing to the dive, they're just going to try to zone here and look for a red buff steal. Even that, they'll come up empty on. Top side of the map, you know, when you know the jungler's down there, if you're ahead in this matchup, you can actually try to make a play or try to force a flash out of Doran, but now Keen is just going to have to kind of sit back, and Doran has his rod, so he's just chilling.
Yeah, you're not really going to do much as Keen, especially without your first item. He's fallen behind here, so until he backs and gets Divine Sunder, I mean, even then, like, he's definitely going to have a better time then, but it's still not going to be, it's not going to mean that he begins to win the matchup immediately or anything like that. Like, Doran has done his job with the help of Chovy. That's it. Like, the job is done essentially for now. For the next 10 minutes, you could say, where he has solidified the top side. He hasn't gotten dived. He hasn't died, and he's actually even gotten kills. So Keen falls behind, and a lot of that late game, you know, side laning from KT will fall behind as a result of that.
And it's a really big testament to the growth that Chovy has made, because his #1 criticism for so long was his impact outside of lane. Yes, his laning is great. We know everyone talks about this all the time. His CS numbers are wonderful, but how can he impact the map? And right now, he's out impacting ATF, right? And that is, I think, a testament to how well this player individually has been playing. But for KT again, one misposition from Pace, from Chovy, from Doran.
Hey, little play here. Doran just base checking in as the cast not going to hit anyone. He just flashes over the wall, though, and does get away for now. Here comes Cuz. And they're going to Destiny Gang underneath this one as they try to burst down the Gragas, and that they will. Here comes Chovy on the return, but he's up against 3, so he's just going to let that one go. Genji, meanwhile, will take down Soul Point Ocean Drink.
So it's still a proactive play. It's successful. Can they get Chovy, though?
Oh, Chovy's trying to stop the TP. He's not going to be successful. Has to flash himself. Everfrost might get him to safety. Still has his ultimate.
Oh, look. Reinforcements are coming.
Yeah,
this
really
is what KT was looking for.
They are really hard forcing this. Chovy is Lissandra.
Yeah.
Does have ult, so, I mean, with the rotation up, I think this is super greedy.
5 seconds.
Well, they definitely want to try to force the Frozen Tomb usage.
No, I don't know about this. I don't know about this.
All right, well, they're going in, and now TP's coming in, and Cuts takes 3 turret shots, and he's immediately going to go down, and a shutdown is given to Chovy and Lissandra as if he needed any more gold.
And this has been
going to lap that up.
This has been the story of KT's choke in this series, just continually trying to hard force. You got some advantages. You lost Drake, but you lost Drake so you could kill Doran, and you get Chovy's teleport. Just be happy with that and walk away. Yeah, just be happy with that and walk away. And then we hard force there into Lissandra, who you know has ultimate. He didn't use it there.
And after 2 great casks, this one from Doran, not quite hitting the mark. Nicely dodged there by BDE as well. This pickup, very, very free. Even with the teleport coming in from Chovy, Gragas doesn't have a stopwatch trying to think to stall. But then this one, you know Doran's coming back up. You know he has teleport. And this is Lissandra. They don't even need the lights.
There's part of me that thinks that there was some kind of miscommunication that he didn't have ultimate, because if he has Frozen Tomb, he is never dying 100 out of 100 times. Like, we all know this. We've seen this. Lissandra gets played a decent amount. He's not going to die. And he clicks onto himself. Weren't happening, either the TP timer or the death timer or the ultimate for Chovy not being used, and that leads to KT overstepping.
We know this team is wiser than this. And I was the one who said this on challenges. I was like, I don't want to hear anyone say, don't get excited about KT. I don't want to hear anyone say, oh, KT might KT in this series. Because I thought, and I said to myself, and I said to everybody who was watching challenges that day, that this team deserves our respect. This team is not choking anymore. This team is not fumbling anymore. This team is actually living up to expectations, and they had been. They beat the big 3 right at the end of regular season. They made a tear through playoffs. They almost beat T1. And I said, I'm ready to trust. I'm ready to trust KT Rolster. I think KT Rolster is going to finals. I want to predict him, and I will predict it as 3-2, and I was.
Wolf, you know what this means?
And you know what? And now I'm watching this game, and I'm like, it's KT or KT?
Wolf, you're a real KT fan now. And hey, game's not over, okay?
First time, huh?
But every KT fan just hears Wolf's like, yep, well, welcome to the team, but do want to highlight again, I think that GENG are in a very, very commanding lead. Like, Pace is going to hit quick blades very soon. Chovy has been on there.
But it's only 500 gold.
GENG can beat T1 if
I know you know.
Willing to fight Zeus. That's why I'm saying.
We're getting slowly to the territory where it comes down to GENG making mistakes again. Because with Keen behind and BDD not really being accelerated, and Chovy being very fed, having sideline pressure is very, very tough. And when you look at like who are you collapsing on, it's Gragas, notorious for being really hard to lock down and with great disengage, and Lissandra, notorious for being impossible to lock down and with great
all
disengage.
the MR boosts on KT.
Another one.
And great at disengage, I think, yeah.
Also a Wukong.
Yes, there's a lot of
Can't get that one.
Well, they killed that one. they got him, but that was also...
It was very hard.
It actually did. It cost him 2 flashes, right? And for KT, it's only 1k, but if that soul starts coming through, and particularly for picks like Gragas, I think, like Ocean Soul Gragas is not okay. Like that's not cool. He already has enough sustain with his passive. He doesn't need more.
Plus the fact that you consider all of this damage here for KT is an lethality Varus. So just healing that up very easily, it's pretty problematic. It just feels like the world is stacked against KT in this final game, and they had opportunities in this series. In the previous game, they absolutely had the advantage. It looked unlosable, and then one mistake gets turned into Delight's heroic play. Now we're on match point, and KT, I mean,
Morelos is not a bad item as it used to be.
If they're able to come back at this one, you got to wonder where the momentum is going to be at for GENG, but we're really looking into the future here. We're really kind of looking into a crystal ball to imagine it at this point in time, because at 21 minutes and 30 seconds, I just don't see it.
Yeah, and GENG are playing it perfectly, basically, right? We give them a lot of credit. Like, Chovy has set up these 2 awesome plays. KT had the one moment, and then they kind of fumbled it, right? But all they got to do is sit back and essentially not allow the Jacks to get too far ahead. As here we go, this engage is questionable. Delight goes in, but maybe it's a bait all along. Jovi's got the angle as here comes Keen. Frozen Tomb on him, and he is just, he goes to the stopwatch. Can he live? The answer is no. As he's basically 100-0. Jovi gets into the back line. Down goes Lahens. As one by one, the dominoes fall.
Wukong cannot die. Wukong needs
to
strike his
GENG are looking to stomp them here in their own jungle. Naming is pushed out, and Cuz maybe okay. Couple of kills for him, but that's gonna be it for the team. He gets 2 kills, but everybody else goes down.
I didn't see how Peanut died. I thought he was backing
So
already.
the Ocean Soul to the side of GENG.
And like all of the team fights we've seen KT try to force in this entire series, really seemingly, it's about the re-engage that you see. And Delight goes in here, and then questionable engage. He's CC'd, but he can dash back out. Teleport here is very questionable coming through from Keen because he's putting himself in harm's way. He has to immediately disengage.
Go away.
Yeah, he has to get out of there, and he cannot. And so then now what do? You're
nice
a Varus
stun. Okay.
And the key thing there to me is Chovy forcing the rest of KT back, because Keen is TPing in there with the assumption that they can 5v5, right? Which is a tough ask as is, but Paze at least was CC'd at the start of that fight. But with Chovy going in there with the Ring of Frost, like that's a Fatless Honor. You gotta respect that everyone backs off, and yes, they get out, but then they can just one by one kill Keen. Cuz with some heroics is able to at least trade some kills back, but that's just not enough.
It's just not enough?
Yeah. KT very excited to take that fight, I have to say, GENG. But I guess the angle was good, right? Delight, he looked pretty...
was a bit scary.
A bit tasty, you know, like the bait was looking pretty good. And then he's Rakan, he gets away. His engage isn't really necessary, I suppose. They have so much follow-up besides the Rakan. They have the Lissandra, the Gragas, etc., as we've talked about many times. So he goes away, he baits in KT, baits the teleport, and gets them into a bad spot. And GENG, once again, they have full control of this game. Like, they are in such a good spot, but okay, trying to get on top of Paze as can they 100-0?
Why is Paze here, man?
As he does try to get some damage in on the aiming, but that's going to be a kill. Now on to aiming.
He's on Ruler's Shadow right there in the mid lane, right on Ruler's Shadow, right where Ruler would have died, you know?
Spot, and it's what we mentioned.
And now they're looking for a Baron.
One pick is all they need.
One pick is all it takes. Let's see.
Ooh.
They can get this going. Lahan's trying to Hex Blast, trying to look for a play, but against Lissandra and Peanut, they're all very fed outside of Paze, and even 5v4, they say, no, we're not going to take the chance. Not this time.
Oh, and on one hand, I like that. On the other, I think that might be one of that might have been it, right? That might have been the point where you say, okay, we got to flip this, because now you're going to come into the next Baron fight with Pace having Cleanse available again. He'll have Guild Force shortly.
His ultimate as well.
Yeah, you don't know if there's going to be another opportunity here. Amazing pick, exactly what we've been talking about with this KT comp. It's Lahens that sets it all up, gets the CC chain together with the rest of his team, Very, very nicely done. No ability for Pace to ever get out here. They make sure that aiming actually gets the kill. Huge shutdown to him as well.
Yeah, and this is not a choke from Pace. This is just a great play from Lehens. He's staring down the barrel of Delight. He just X-flashes over the wall and sets up for it. But like you say, if you're not going to capitalize on that, what do you capitalize on?
Ooh, nice angle here. Lehens still no flash. He's going to be going down immediately. As underneath the turret, the rest of the team just has to back away from Lysander once again. And that's going to be a nice little pick here. Keen, you see he's in the side lane. He does have the teleport, but GENG definitely got to be looking at that Baron now.
I mean, you have to make a tough call here. Do you try to contest this Baron? Aiming survives. He's full health now, but he's so far away. Or do you try to push and grab 2 turrets here?
Yeah, you got to trade. Gonna shove hard.
They're committing. Yeah, they're committing into that bottom lane, and GENG, 100% of the time, they will take down this Baron, but is this TP worth it? I mean, this push isn't even that strong. It's pretty slow, to be honest. They are going to get that inner turret, but that's about it, and now aiming, or rather BDD does not have his teleport.
I appreciate the decision-making here from KT, but it's not going to be very impactful. But what do? And you don't have enough map control to even do anything to get vision in your own jungle as a Nautilus here. Lehens is taken out. Aiming is basically 100 to 0.
Maybe if they were more patient, they could have gotten aiming.
Oh, Destiny Gate Pace like, no, not again. Not a second time.
Yeah. He got a taste for the ruler spot. I think he's going to try to avoid that for now.
Bounties up.
Yeah, and KT, I mean, I think they also got a taste of like, oh yeah, our comp is pretty good at like 1-3-1ing and trying to go for side lane pushes. They are pretty behind in that facet, but you know, Chovy can just respond with the TP up to the top side. It's very difficult to dive the Lysander and the Gragas, as we talked about before. So I feel like they can kind of just hold on here, and GENG still have the Baron buff for 2 more minutes.
When you consider how difficult it is to kill any single one target, maybe the idea is just to kill turrets. And yeah, you could trade a turret, but you've got bounty gold.
This is a 2-free. That's not working. That's not enough.
I mean, there's no teleport
what can
flank.
they do?
Or maybe they could try to set up for one, but it's just not enough. You don't have enough control. They'll just turn on Keen and kill him. And he's just going to try to get another bounty here, trade turrets or bounties, and try to buy time for this Baron. I guess that's your only option. You can't team fight. They try to outpush him.
Yeah, I mean, they were probably going to lose that inhibitor anyway. It's not like the team's
boy.
Too much.
And they got one
TP comes in.
They got 1 TP moments ago. Now they've got a second one. So Chovy and Doran now down on TPs.
Ooh,
oh, nice.
A little sidestep there from Doran. You can tell he's feeling pretty good about this game so far. He's on the chase. He's up 2 levels on Keen with his Rod of Ages finished. He's having a grand old time pushing that Jax out of the side lane.
Aiming is GG.
And is that the pick that ends the series and sends GENG to the grand finals? I think it may just be, as they are looking down the barrel of a second inhibitor going down.
And the more things change, the more they stay the same. Looking like it's T1 GENG on the menu again.
Woo! There you go, Doran. He wants a little piece of the pie as well. As down they will go. Tons of feathers pull through. And GENG will do it. They will take down the Nexus. They will take down KT in the 3-1. They stabilize their minds and they get it done in the end. And they will be joining us in the LCK Grand Finals and in MSI as our second seed from Korea.
And like you say, the more things change, the more they stay the same. And it will not be KT Rolster going to a finals. 5 years these fans waited for their moment. They were the favorites, albeit slightly going into this series, but GENG stayed calmer. And this is crazy to say for a team that has a rookie and a player who's never been to a finals before in the bottom lane. And both of those players played incredibly well. Chovy showed up today, and GENG will get their 3rd back-to-back finals.
Tomorrow I'll be more energetic.
It's DRX who lifted the World's Trophy, but GENG are defending champions, and they will have an opportunity for revenge against T1, who knocked them into the lower bracket. If they get that revenge, they'll be back-to-back LCK champions.
And the redemption arc for KT won't be them going to finals, but still, I think it's important to note, even though it might not feel that way right now, the performance from these players, greatest orc,